Good evening, everyone. My name's Barney Arnold. I'm the chair of the Select Board. Welcome to the meeting of the Carlisle Select Board on Tuesday, October 25th. To my right, I have Kate Reed, another member of the board. To my left is Travis Snell, and all the way to my left is David Modell. And then I see joining us virtually is Nathan Brown. Hi, Nathan. All righty, so let me quickly review the agenda. First, we'll have community input. So if you're online, feel free just to put your hand up or signal in some way that you have a comment to make. Then the town clerk is going to execute the November 8th election warrant. We have a discussion about the police chief transition, including a candidate for the interim police chief, Ken Fong, who's also a Carlisle resident. And then at 7:40, we'll be meeting with some members of the Finance Committee to discuss the fiscal year 24 budget goals and the budget process. 8:30 is the Greeno Barn. 8:50 is a shared services study proposal. And at 9:20, the town administrator's report. We have just one appointment tonight, and then liaison reports followed by the approval of the minutes. And so with that, I will go back to community input and ask if there is anyone online that would like to make any comment at this time. Is there anyone on besides Nathan?
There doesn't seem to be.
Okay. All right.
There's a lot of people on besides me, but nobody's raising their hand.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not.
Oh, you don't, but Nathan, you can tell. Okay.
I have it on too.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So you can let
Are
me
you
know
Jen?
then too.
Can you let?
Jen is.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I'm waiting to get in.
Great. All righty. Well, then let's move on and welcome to Peggy Lang, our town clerk, Peggy Wang, sorry, our town clerk. Peggy, would you mind coming up to the mic? Thank you. And I have just been notified this evening that Peggy has been on WBUR radio and doing an excellent job of describing election security.
Yes.
So thank you, Peggy.
Yes, thank you.
All righty. So
So-
we'll turn it over to you. Yeah.
Okay, so I came before the board tonight so that we could sign the warrant for the November 8th election.
And is there anything you want to say about that?
No, it's a very straightforward, it's the standard warrant that lists all of the various, not the candidates' names, but the various positions that are being voted for. Plus, it does have all of the questions on the warrant.
The various ballot
The
questions.
various, there are 6 of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Good. I think that's making the rounds, but shall we take a motion to execute the November 8th election warrant? Would someone make that motion?
I'll make the motion that we execute the November 8th election warrant. As
Second.
written.
Oh, sorry.
As written.
Oh, second.
Great. Any discussion? All those in favor, we'll do this as a roll call vote. Arnold, I.
Brown eye.
Modell, I.
Reed, I.
Snell, I.
Excellent. The warrant is approved.
Okay, great. Thank you very
And
much.
we do have the certificate that's making the round, so we'll make sure we get all those signed. And then, do you need all 5 of us?
No,
Okay,
four's good.
okay. So that's what, if you want that back then tonight, I think it's,
I can get it from Jen tomorrow or.
Okay.
Or Ryan tomorrow. That's
Okay,
fine. It
great.
doesn't have to be posted until October the 31st,
okay.
but I just,
Yeah.
since we're a meeting, I wanted to get it
Yeah.
taken care of.
Good, good. Okay, thanks a
Okay,
lot,
have a nice
Peggy.
evening.
Thanks for all you do for our town.
Yes.
All right, good night. All right, so I would like to welcome Ken Fong. If you want to come up and sit at the table, I'll see a picture. Yeah, please join him. And for the discussion about the police chief transition, I think, Ryan, does it make sense to have you give a little introduction to this part?
Yes.
Okay.
So the
Thank you.
things to discuss with the police transition are how we're going to fill the interim period before we can select a permanent candidate, the decision and timeframe for the selection process, and then the board has discussed having a screening committee involved in this process as well. So a couple things tonight are to meet a potential candidate and introduce you to Ken Fong, who has a very long history of police service, also a Carlisle resident, and a tremendous resume, having served a long time in Newton, Boston, in many high administration roles, and then most recently as the interim in Bedford, which is a neighboring town. And then the next part of this would be to go into the interim decision and timeframe, and then how you'd like to structure the committee. I'd love to introduce Ken, who I've met with. We had a good conversation about what Carlisle needs at this moment and what he might be able to offer as both a resident and a potential candidate. So
Great. Well, welcome, Ken.
Thank you.
Really nice to have you here tonight. We appreciate your willingness to serve. I don't know, Ken, if you want to say a little bit about your both being a resident here in Carlisle and a little bit maybe about why you're willing to take this on.
Okay, great. Well, I'd like to start by thanking the board for taking the time to hear me out tonight. And I live in Carlisle since 2009. And I've been in policing for about 34 years. Most recently, I was the interim police chief in Bedford, neighboring town. And prior to that, I was at the Boston Police Department, where I was on the command staff and in some command role for about 15 years, where I was a superintendent, deputy superintendent, and captain. And after I retired, I was retired for a little bit, went to Bedford, and then being a resident of Carlisle, I've always been very interested in the police department and the goings on in the police department. Actually, I had was fortunate to be on Chief Fisher's original selection committee when he was hired back in 2011. And so I've always kind of tracked what was going on at Carlisle PD, just because policing is my thing. And my hometown, obviously, I have a little or big interest in what happens in town and the police department. So Chief Fisher had reached out saying that the town was looking for an interim. I was kind of planning on going back to retirement. And, but, you know, as I thought about it, I said, well, you know, this could be a great opportunity. I could use my experience, my education, my training, and my interest in the department and the town to help out. Because this is, I know this is a very crucial period for a police department. The transition period, you know, you don't want anything to get derailed. You want everything to continue to run smoothly and to transition smoothly, you know, as the search process takes place for a permanent chief. So I thought this might be something that I can help out in some way.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Folks have any sort of questions or follow-up comments?
I kind of think this is a no-brainer. And I would say if we were to offer you the job and if you were to take it, we would be forever grateful. I don't see how we could find anybody better for an interim, and the fact that because I had heard Bertie told me you really didn't want to come out of retirement again. And the fact that you reconsidered and thought you would, I would be very grateful for.
Thank you. And I would be fully committed to the job. It's once I set my mind, I'm all in.
I don't think there's any doubt of that.
Other questions or comments? Let me just check in with Nathan. Nathan, any comments or questions?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Ryan.
And just in response to some of the conversations the board's had already, Ken and I talked about what he sees as the role of an interim, especially helping transition from a longtime chief to hopefully another longtime permanent chief. And I don't know if you wanted to speak to your experience in that and what you think is your role in that position and what you would commit to, specifically in terms of evaluation and just a third party.
So I've served on at least half a dozen police chief search committees or assessments in recent years. And, you know, obviously it's a very critical role. A lot of organizations and towns will use a search committee. I'm sorry, a firm, a vendor that specifically specializes in police chief hirings. And that's what I would recommend in this case too. That's typically what happens in most local cities and towns here. And then obviously having a town search committee as well, I think is a great part of the process. So what the assessor would do when they come in, they would speak with whoever the interim chief is, the members of the police department, with some folks in town to try to kind of get a sense of what the town is looking for in a police chief. And so they would then tailor the assessment to those particular needs, depending on what the particular issues are that the town's facing. And then they do the assessment. My role or Ryan's role in that situation would be to make sure things are kept on track, being informed, making sure everything's going smoothly with the process. And then when the time comes to make a selection, then there'll be input. There'll be, the search firm can do background checks and that sort of thing. And then from there, a selection's made, it could be recommendations from the search committee, then the board will obviously make the final decision. And then at that point, my role as the interim would be to transition the new chief in. And part of the transition process would be, in my role as the interim, I would basically do reviews, audits, assessments. It's pretty standard procedure in law enforcement circles that when you take over a command, that you take an assessment of what's currently going on as far as policies, procedures, equipment, training, certifications, that type of stuff. And then finding out what any needs might be or concerns are, and then being able to transition to the new chief so that the new chief will be onboarded quickly, smoothly. There'll be recommendations or things that you could advise the new chief on, and then I would obviously be available for the new chief to fully transition that person over.
So in layperson's terms, you'd be sort of doing an assessment of the current department and including discussions with the members of the police department.
Yes.
And sort of coming up with your own assessment or that you can then share with the new chief coming in.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And would you, is that something, how would you approach doing that? Or are there standard things that you would do in the course of trying to do that your
Yeah,
own
I mean,
internal
it's-
assessment?
Yeah, it's pretty regular. There's some kind of checklist items like ensuring, and I'm sure Chief Fisher's done a fantastic job in his many years there, but it's just as part of due diligence of taking over new command that any law
Mhm.
enforcement
Mhm.
professional would do. And to make sure whatever training requirements that need to be met are met, whatever certifications need to be kept up to date or up to date. The condition of equipment or the fleet, budget, needs of the budget, things like that. And then policies, procedures, are there any policies that might need to be updated or changed? And then as far as the personnel, and typically for me, what that would look like is I would have conversations, one-on-one conversations with all the officers and staff
Mhm.
to just find out what's been going on in the department, what they think might be, like a quality in the next chief that they might think would be helpful to the organization, what they might have for concerns. And then from there, I would just kind of be able to wrap that all together and
Mhm.
present that, whether it's to Ryan or to the board or to the assessor and to the next chief, obviously.
Yeah.
What's going on, so.
Yeah, so you'll be coming on board as we're, getting into the active budget process for fiscal 24. And I suppose depending on when we get a new chief, you may be, that may be something that's pretty far along under your watch. So I think that would be, very helpful. I know there's some questions about, the numbers of officers that we have on and whether we're going to include, an additional officer going into FY 24. So that would be very helpful, I think, to have your read on that too. And for me, I'm very excited that we have somebody of your caliber and experience, and I'd be very happy to see you take on the role of the interim chief.
Thank you.
Big shoes to fill, but
Very big.
I can say you do have a little more hair, so
Not a lot.
you get an advantage on that one. But no, seriously, we at least I would very much welcome you.
I actually have a question if I may.
Nathan?
Are there any restrictions on the number of hours you can work or any times that you can work?
Yeah, yes, since I'm retired from Boston and collecting a pension, there are state pension caps on the number of hours and the earnings. For 2022, they've been suspended or eliminated. That happened back in June, and then for 23, it's still the standard cap on earnings and hours,
Is that a calendar year?
calendar year,
Calendar year, okay.
So you could pack them in January.
whatever it takes.
Yeah, and so, further on our agenda, or we've got the sort of proposed calendar. So would you be, or I don't know, maybe you and Ryan have talked about this, if you were to come on board, how you and Chief Fisher would make that transition. I know the chief's now part-time here. What are you thinking that for the interim, they would start? Is this part-time as well and then move to full-time once Chief Fisher was fully on board in Bedford and no longer on the payroll here?
So my recommendation in talking to both these gentlemen and members of the department would be to have some overlap time so that one chief can go out and one can come in and they can share that knowledge. Also meet with the leadership team and Mr. Fong or maybe Chief Fong in order to decide how the manning and the staffing will go for him as he moves through the transition process. And then at the end, working in the same way to transition with the new chief and the interim chief, it's a good handoff. It's a great opportunity because you have tremendous data and strategic planning from Chief Fisher. You'll have a third-party evaluator from the outside in the interim position to provide data. And then you can require that the new chief conduct an intro 30 to 90 day review. And you'll have all three data points in order to see where the department's going to go moving forward. So we would have preferred to keep Chief Fisher. It would have been a lot easier.
Yes, of
Thanks, Chief.
course.
But in terms of transition, that would be the recommendation.
Okay, so as I read this proposed calendar, would the interim, so where is that overlap week, or is that, because it says Chief Fisher's on till November 19th and the interim starts November 19th. So would you be starting the interim like a week earlier?
It would be, and I don't know, but I would say as early
That's
as
what you-
possible to have the overlap, the better.
Yeah, okay.
I'm
So
sure
this
Chief's
might
finding he's
be
very busy in
Tweaked
Bedford.
a little bit. Yeah, okay. All right,
Missed it. How much overlap time is recommended?
a week.
Yeah.
if
a week or two,
possible.
Depending on when everyone can start.
Yeah. So unless there are further questions, I would like to accept a motion to, and it's in our packets here. Would you like
So
to make
I'll
that,
move the
Kate?
select board vote to appoint Kenneth Fong to serve as the interim police chief for the town of Carlisle. Do I need to put any dates or anything?
I think that's probably
Just
to be.
To be, to be negotiated or contingent on negotiation, successful negotiations.
Second.
All right, David Modell is seconded. Any more discussion?
I would just say that, we were, Chief Fisher had highly recommended you, and I'm very pleased that this worked out. And just for the benefit of other people watching, that, we've had the opportunity to review your professional resume. We've looked into this, and I think that you'd make an excellent candidate.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, well, let's do a roll call vote then. Arnold, I.
Brown eye.
Modell, I.
Reed, I.
Snell, I.
Excellent. Well, welcome. Now you're in it.
I'll do my best.
Yes, we're really happy to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks, Ryan.
All right, so we'll let the two of you work things out from here in terms of the details.
I'll contact you.
Yeah.
Great.
What's the the mosquito will report it. Any other communication we need to give to the, it's maybe a John question. Internal communications to your team?
So I'll handle that.
Yep.
Probably gonna get back tonight.
Okay. Yep.
Let everybody know.
Yep.
And I'll have to coordinate.
What up, John, if you wouldn't mind, yeah, come up to a mic just so folks can hear. Yeah, you can sing. Yeah.
So I think being clear and transparent and, you know, each step along the way, you know, I've sent out a group email, so this is not, obviously it's public and they're probably following along, some of them are following along, but I'll go back, I'm gonna send an email tonight. Let them know what the selection is, who it is, they know him, just his involvement with our police department goes a little further than that, like he's a person that frequently comes by the police department, that buys lunch for the members, that has been invested in our police department since I've been here, since day one. But I'm gonna let them know this good news officially, and that at a certain point, when Chief Fong would like, we'll work on that week transition, and then, you know, we'll figure out exactly how this is gonna go, and coordinate some meetings with leadership, police department, and move forward that way. Does that make sense? Does that sound okay? All right.
Yeah, sounds great. Now, do we have a reporter from the Mosquito, Nathan, on the
Yeah, I'll tell you in a second.
remotely?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
There is? Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right.
I have just an eyeball question. So you guys are not the same size. So what do we do about interim uniforms?
So we talked about this coming in tonight. So one of the first orders of business is actually, I'm gonna need to get Chief Fong over a uniform spot. We have patches. I've got all this stuff. And it's really just a matter of a day or two. You know, for good or for bad, the pants are exactly the same from Bedford and from Carlisle. So really, I know this is gonna sound kind of hokey, but you know, the
He's got the
uniforms are really
pants.
gonna be the least of our problem.
I was just
The
curious.
badges I've already got stuff laid out.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of forming the transition stuff on top of the file cabinets. To make it easy, but I think that's a great question, but I think it's gonna go pretty smoothly. Yeah, so we'll be able to facilitate that. The uniform supplier is, right next door here.
Great.
Very good. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you again, Chief Fong. Great to have you on board, and Chief Fisher. Thank you again for helping us find such a great person to be the interim.
Yes, we're really fortunate.
Yeah.
We're really fortunate. This is, I couldn't even imagine how it would work out better. I can't.
Yeah. Oh, that's good to
And the
hear.
town save some money, right? No interim search.
That's right.
Exactly.
And he brings his own pants.
Might have been a little too much information there, but I'm here to help with the discussion.
David, if we ever do a roast, I'm going to remember these comments. All righty. Well,
Is a roast, but gotta have a sense of.
that's right. Absolutely. All right. Well, great. Thank you. So is that we want to, do we need to do anything more, Ryan, on the proposed calendar? Or should we move ahead to the screening committee?
So the first thing
Or did
is,
you have something more?
the first thing is we put an RFP in your packet. So the consensus from the board thus far has been to solicit a search firm to assist. Just wanted to talk briefly to public members of the police department and the board here that there's no such thing as selecting. We have to send out an RFP
Right.
to all of the eligible because of the cost of this assessment. So they will send proposals, and then the board will consider the proposals from the various firms that complete this activity. So there are 3 known ones in this area that operate generally, but this will be public and we'll take bids from anybody. So the decision points from the board is the RFP to your liking, the one that's in your packet.
Yeah.
It was designed, hard work from Chief Fisher, and then I touched it up on the admin side. 2 corrections or 2 things in there that I'd like your input on is I'd like this to be emailed to me, not sealed bid. It just makes it's under 50,000, so we do sealed bids, and it makes it just more efficient, and I can track things that are coming in better. And then the time frame. So I'd like to have the proposals due in 2 weeks. I think that's sufficient time for these firms. They all know this is coming. They monitor this type of thing. So I think 2 weeks is fine to get that going. So those are the 2 decision points in addition to what you believe about the proposal. And I know Chief had something to say about it as well.
Okay. So what we see here where it says proposals due November 1, we're going to bump that out another week to November 8th.
Gosh, mine says October 18th.
Opens.
Oh, that's when
It
it
opens.
Yeah.
The front page, the top page says due.
Say it gets out tomorrow.
Proposals do, yeah.
Proposals could be due the 16th. I think that's.
16th. Okay.
Okay.
So does anyone have any? Oh,
We meet on the 15th, which means it'll be another 2 weeks.
So we could do by the 11th. That's a little
Yeah.
more than 2 weeks.
does that, do you think that's reasonable for what we're looking for?
I think so.
Okay,
So
let's
you
do
gotta
that.
make
It'd be
those
great
now
then
for
if we
the
could,
time.
right, if we could have that on that,
It is on.
It's on. Sorry, I'm too far away. So it's less than, it's 2 weeks from today, right? Or is it 3 weeks? No, it's 3 weeks, isn't it?
So if we sent it out tomorrow, 2 weeks would be the 9th.
Yeah, right. Okay, so you give it to the 11th, which is a Friday,
It'll be Friday.
and then we'll need to just.
the following
ourselves.
Tuesday,
Well, we'll need make room in that agenda to evaluate.
right? And so Ryan, when you get the proposals, just for our information from reading this, and maybe other things you've told me, so you will open up or whatever they've sent you electronically, you'll take a look at those on that Friday due date. And then are you going to provide some kind of analysis or proposal to us based on what you see there about which firm to consider, or you're going to bring all 3 bids to us and we need to look through those like over the weekend and then make a decision at that meeting on the 15th or 13th, I guess it is.
So you'll get,
15.
15th, sorry.
you'll get the procurement analysis. So are they complete responsible bids? Which is the lowest bidder? And then how did they match the selection criteria, which is
Yeah.
in the packet? So it's from non-advantageous to highly advantageous,
Mhm.
depending on what we feel is their quality of work, plan of services, staff, and history.
Right.
So you'll get that analysis from me and then make your own analysis. And then the town is allowed to select the one it believes is the most qualified at the lowest possible price.
So is there a point in time where either you or we are expected to conduct in-person interviews?
You do not have to.
Are you going to when you were vetting? If you have questions, you reach out to them?
If there's questions, yes.
So just to recap, you'll do that assessment of advantageous, I've forgotten the terms you have in here, but the various ratings. You'll do that for each of the bids you receive and then send that to us.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we'll have to be ready, everybody, to do a little homework.
So, Ryan, question, I mean, this is a lot more legal legally than like our engagement for you. Why, is that just some statutory reason? There's just a whole bunch of, reads more like a federal bid package to me. You know.
It's to allow the board to make sure that the firm that you choose is.
Sure, but we didn't do that with Community Paradigm. They came in, we chatted and off we went.
Well, they did do that whole town overview.
No, I know
Remember
they
that
did,
in
but we didn't-
interviews
I mean,
with
just
different
read this.
people.
I'm just curious about the
The
process. The RFP here is very,
Complicated.
is
I
very
think it was-
complicated. You gotta have all these forms, you know. And we're not gonna cheat, no collusion. I mean, yeah, of course, but I mean, we had
Right,
not
this is different.
previously required it for what's to me is at least as a
Right,
high of an assignment. So what's the thinking?
It's just how I normally do an RFP.
Because
but
now we
can-
have you as well.
You can lessen it if you want.
Okay, it just seems like a lot of baggage for a small town, that's all. Okay, it's the way you do it, but
but it's
Right,
probably what these search firms are expecting,
yeah.
something like
I mean, they
this.
did respond last time in writing, right? And then we interviewed them.
You respond?
Nathan, can you speak up just a little bit? It's hard for me to hear.
Yeah.
I'm not sure my speaking up's gonna help much. You might have to turn up your volume. But we did get proposals last time with costs, so we must have sent something out.
Oh, no, we did RFP. I'm just saying.
Okay.
if you Read this bid package. It's very legal. like I say, I do, federal bids for a living. It's like that, right? I expect it of the US federal government. I'm not sure I expect it out of the town of Carlisle. So I'm just asking the question. But it's the way you do it. It's okay. We never want to add cost, right? If we're adding complexity, we should have a reason. I wouldn't change this one. I'm just saying going forward, as a guidance, we should ask ourselves, do we really need are we saying it because it sounds good that we say it, or is it something we actually need? That's we should try to be, minimal sort of imposition, because at the end of the day, it all adds cost to the bid. If they have to spend time. The other question I have is, you have some things highlighted
Yeah.
in the RFP.
2.2.2.
There's a bunch of them that are.
Yeah.
What's the significance of the highlights?
So the highlights are things that I would like to change based on.
Okay.
So submitting electronically, et cetera.
Okay, all right.
There is a requirement in this to interview.
Right.
So if the board does not want to do that, we can take that section out as
Well,
well.
I mean, that's sort of where I started, is like the thing that I find the most valuable. Like certainly for Community Paradigm and the other guy were the interviews, right? We
Yeah.
found the one guy, we didn't like him at all, and Community Paradigm sounded great. And you don't get that from, I
Right.
pledge that I won't collude. Okay, great. I mean, it doesn't add to our body of knowledge. So we may, I guess, decide in the November 15th that we want to talk to two of them or something, right?
Is this significantly different in cost from the paradigm? Is it more expensive? Is this why we're
Yeah.
doing a different process?
It's more. Or I thought I saw, wasn't it more than what I saw?
10 grand or something.
It's unclear to me.
Okay. Chief Fisher, I thought I saw you getting ready to say something earlier.
I mean, I think but you guys hit it. So the only thing is, like, if you do it this way, then you get to interview people, like to send it out a couple and do, really minimalistic. It almost lessens your ability to do the things that Ryan's talking about. We're rating them. Like what he's talking about doing is really the right way.
Listen, I'm okay. I'm okay with it. It's a departure from what we've done. I'm just saying, from my view, the valuable thing is the interpersonal dynamic that we build, and every reputable firm will tick every box. I know how it works. I do bids all the time.
Sure.
If you know what you're doing, you know how to tick every box. You will be compliant. It will not add from A to B. I mean, maybe one guy didn't do it, and so we throw them away, but of the 2 or 3 that tick every box, we need insight into the one that we really think understands us and will fit our search, right? That's the valuable piece to me. So I'm just saying,
Hmm.
we
So-
may consider interview.
Is there something in here that we would like to add that sort of?
I don't think it's in here. I think it's in our other process. I think what I'm hearing David
when we
say is he
interview.
would like us to have an opportunity to interview
Yeah.
If we just-
1 or 2 of the top
Right.
candidates at least.
It may be
So
clear.
that the-
It may be. clear
As,
from the-
Yeah, okay,
As would
I'm
I.
very
I
comfortable with
would as
that.
well.
Nathan?
Yeah, Nathan is,
I would as well.
yes.
Okay,
I think it saved us last time, honestly.
yeah, I think it's important too,
Well, and we just got Ken, so we're sort of ahead of schedule, right?
right?
So I think
If it
there's
bumps
not
us a little,
there's not a need to rush it. I think it's good to get it in so we don't drag it, right? The 15th.
We have a meeting on the
We'll have
15th,
bids, we can evaluate them.
right?
And I think at that point, we can decide for the next meeting if we want to bring in finalists. So we're
Mhm.
still in 2 weeks.
right, because we have
Up for-
another,
We're way ahead,
Right.
right?
right, we have
Because
another one
Ken-
on the
Ken is in-
29th.
Will be in place, I hope, and.
Yeah,
And John can focus on that.
yeah. All right,
Okay.
that sounds good to me. And Nathan, sounds like you're comfortable with that too?
Mhm,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Travis?
So,
All right,
okay, so
So-
going back to the highlighted thing, personally, I'm all in favor of electronic submissions. I think it's the idea of sealed proposals, an original and 2 copies is archaic
Right.
these days. So I can't imagine what that buys us. So yes, I would do the electronic ones. And so that takes care of those 2 things on page 11, right? 2 questions. And were there any other questions you needed
well, the
guidance from us? Oh, and then
4.4 on page 17.
4.4.
Because this also talks about having an evaluation committee for the proposals, and
So you would answer that. by
You-
saying he wanted me to look at them, make sure they were good.
That
Yeah.
you're gonna do that. You don't need to have a committee. Yeah, so
Right.
you can change that, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
please do.
So based on
Great.
the conversation criteria, 6 will be the potential
Yeah.
of a presentation interview, not a required interview, so that you can make that decision on the 15th, looking at the bid packages. There might only be one, you might get 6.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, 4.4 is if you're doing a $20 million building, we
Right.
probably want to have a committee look at the bids.
Right.
But
Yeah.
not for
Right.
this.
This, yeah. Yeah, okay. So does that, is that everything that you wanted us to pay attention to in this
Let me see
proposal?
if there was one above.
Okay,
RFP will be available. Yeah, okay, so you're gonna change that date.
yeah.
All right.
Good. So do you need us to,
Nathan, you want, raising a hand or is it just?
I think he's
No, I'm
raising-
sorry, I'm
Yeah.
holding my head up.
Sold to the man in pink
Yeah.
shirt.
Brian, do you need us to take a vote on this or you?
I don't,
It's clear to me. whatever.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
all right,
Great.
great, good.
great.
So is there more then on?
Search committee, you wanna-
This
Yeah,
screening
I was
committee
just asking,
structure.
was there anything else before we get to the search committee?
I don't, I'm not sure if this is, I think this is part of transition. I think I need some guidance philosophically. It's one of the things I talked to Ken about. So we had one of the dispatchers gave notice a week ago. She had a baby.
Oh,
She and her husband chose to move to Connecticut, move closer to the family. He secured a job down there. So we have an opening, and then you already know about, we got we have an officer that retired and the one open position that we did not fill. And I guess, 3.5 months ago, we started a process to hire at least one police officer, if not 2. And, the department itself worked pretty hard to run that process and came out with, 2 good candidates. So I guess I need some direction about that and also about the dispatcher, because the problem with leaving those spots vacant is that costs money in overtime, and it costs the inability for flexibility for vacations and time when we're moving into Christmas. For example, we've got one of the police candidates, is certified is from a local police department. Actually, they're both from local, but one's really from local. And I don't want to leave them hanging out there. But they've, the team, it took half the police department to do that test and to interview them. And, obviously we had civilian input on the interview, and they provided me 2 good candidates. So I'd like some input on that, and also about the dispatcher. Like, I feel like we should hire those folks. Because I don't think, in these next 6 months, we're waiting. It's only bad things can happen if we don't fill these positions. Now, if you tell me I'm all wet, I would wait. My personal preference is wait for the promotion. So you have a sergeant that is retired, right? So that position's off the books. So we have definitely that money available. And of course, the town also funded the 12th position, but I would say, and I've not discussed this with Ken, maybe it's not how he feels, but it's probably not appropriate to do a promotion. Put somebody in a leadership, that may be the spot for the next chief. But I do feel like we should have a full department. Ken's run more than enough assessments. I'm not gonna have time in 3 weeks to make a sergeant promotion. I think to do it properly, the way we've always done it in the past, with reading, with a test, with interviews, with people from the town sitting on the board. I've walked Ken through what we've done previously, but so I guess I'm sorry if it sounds like a shotgun, but I have a few questions that I need direction on, for my next month in working on this. Because the candidates have reached out like, hey, kind of what's going on.
Right.
My name becomes public, it's not great at my other place. But so there's that question. I would like the permission to move forward with the dispatch, with getting that position posted. I have the official posting we use because we need to run a test. There are things that are probably going to happen during Ken's watch. We have an interview panel for that. That takes a little bit of time. But she's gone. She's in Connecticut. And she's finishing out FMLA in 2 weeks. So
And so that you have you have 5 positions in the dispatch
So we have 5
department, and
dispatchers,
so now you're down 1,
12 police officers, we're
Yeah.
down 1 dispatcher,
right?
2 police officers.
Right. So let's address the dispatch first, because that might be the easier one. But my view is that we should go ahead and fill that. But I'm wondering if other people here have a different position. I also can, I don't, if you don't mind, I'll ask you after the other members of the board have weighed in to see if you have any particular thoughts on that.
Actually, I like to hear Ken's thoughts
You wanna
before
hear Ken's
we weigh in.
Okay.
You wouldn't mind?
Yeah, Ken, do you mind coming up and addressing the board? Thanks.
So on the dispatch position, I do agree with Chief Fisher that it should be filled. Because if another one of the dispatchers just has any other, gets sick, COVID, family, medical issue, anything like that, then that could really strain the department and you could be shorthanded and then you get into a situation where dispatchers are being forced into work or forced to stay extra shifts and that could be really draining and it's tough on morale. And I don't think I don't know about the numbers as far as savings on overtime versus, hiring another staff person at this time, but I would say that it makes sense to fill the dispatch position.
Mhm.
And on the officers, I also.
Well, let's hold off
Okay,
on that for
sorry.
just a second, if you don't mind. Yeah.
Go one at a time.
And does anyone here have questions about filling that
dispatcher?
position? Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I think the dispatcher is a very easy one.
yeah.
Again, I definitely agree that that one needs to be filled.
And is there a Chief Fisher, is there a standard pay rate that you would hire that person in to, that would be
That's-
similar to what we're currently paying or something in the same neighborhood?
That's correct.
Okay.
So what we say is starting salary at least, and it's 53,400. Because we are allowed to give credit, because we've gotten laterals before from other places. And then we've got to negotiate their time and experience, and then I would reapproach the board. It would probably actually happen on Ken's watch.
Right,
We'd
okay.
reapproach the board and say, we're going to bring them in
Based
at
on
this
who you-
level
the
for
candidate.
this reason. They're
Yeah,
coming from
okay.
Right.
Dispatch center, a regional dispatch center, have this much experience.
Okay,
And then we've only ever done that once, but we have done that once.
okay. Nathan, did you have any comment on the, oops,
Oops, what happened?
have we lost our,
No, wait.
okay.
Oh.
Yeah, he's
he
not on.
is, no.
We're still connected though?
We're still on.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Well, my sense is then from the board that's here is that we're comfortable making a motion. Yeah, probably need to make a motion on this one, right?
Yep.
To authorize the chief and as needed, the interim
Mhm.
chief to post the position for a dispatcher.
So moved.
second, and this would be done with Ryan's involvement and or the new personnel person in the hiring. I mean, because we do have, are we going to have any new procedures in a hiring procedure that involves personnel,
So
staff in any way?
according to the general bylaws and the Mass General Law regarding this, the select board appoints all officers in the community.
Right, so, and as you're,
Correct as,
and you are our designee or delegate, as I recall, in being involved in whatever processes go up until that time, right? Or
yeah,
no?
I would work with.
Yeah,
everyone
okay,
anyway.
I just want to assure that everybody understands how that process will roll. Because
Okay.
I'm not sure it always happened in the past, but we are encouraging our town administrator / personnel director to be more involved in the hiring processes, to just,
And actually, our assistant town administrator is likely to be on board by then. Right?
yeah, I'm
When
not
we
sure.
get
she
into
would be the
this.
one that would be doing
No,
that,
but it
because I
might be a
think,
good learning.
yes,
Right.
right.
Good opportunity on that. Yes, okay, sorry. We have a motion on the floor that's been seconded, so let's take a roll call vote. Arnold, I.
Not hearing Brown, Modell, I.
Reed, I.
Snell, I.
All right, just note that Nathan Brown was absent for the vote.
Let me-
All right, well,
I'll text
all right,
him.
so that's clear. We've given you authority to go ahead with the dispatch position. Then for the police officer, let's start by asking Chief Fong if you looking at, I know you haven't had a chance to look into the specifics of the staffing at the police department. I will say that because we're entering the budget process and we've been sort of having some informal conversations about whether or not to go ahead and fill the opening for a variety of reasons, some financial and some waiting until and some other eyes have had a chance to assess what our needs are. I think we'd be very interested in hearing your opinion about whether or not to fill that position now, rather than waiting either till you're more fully on board or a permanent chief is on board.
Well, I think this would be the same situation as with the dispatcher about the existing personnel being stretched too thin, whereas there's, I believe, only 10 full-time currently, that it would make sense to fill at least one of the positions now, if not both, to ensure that, and then you'll have subsequently have a promotion that would need to be made down the road somewhere to fill that position. So I think it makes sense to fill the position.
Ryan, do you have any thoughts you want to offer on this?
Well, I generally believe that the incoming chief should select the personnel. If I was hiring my assistant, I would want input on that. So I don't know how to do that. I don't know how long lists last, or when this list would expire, or this candidate is no longer eligible. I don't know if it extends out to February. I'm not as versed in police hiring. So I guess I would ask you, Chief.
So it's not a civil service town. So the problem is both of these folks are looking for a different place to go. And with the current environment right now with hiring, it's like I've got them both, I kind of on a short rope, but because this is a good place to work. And it takes a certain type of person to work here, and to have two valid candidates, we're really lucky, but they're not going to be here shortly.
Okay.
I've had conversations with both of them every few days to kind of keep them up to speed on what's going. But I've got to tell them if the answer is no, and they're gonna move on.
If we're not hiring now.
And
yeah.
these are, I don't like going too much in the X's and O's, because as soon as you say it's okay, then I've got to do the paperwork for that conditional offer. And then I've got to have a conversation with them. Okay, you need to sign this conditional offer so I can bring it to the select board to make this conditional on your background, the psychological and the physical.
I got him.
And that's just kind of the way it goes. So that they can let their current, that kind of stuff. So the right process is that, but the short answer to Ryan's question, these two aren't going to be around. They're too good. Now, we pay pretty well for patrol officers.
Okay.
And for that, I think we're fortunate. I mean, they're leaving places where they make less money. But it's not just about the money.
Right. I would like to be then clear about what two positions these two candidates would be filling. They would not be filling the sergeant's position.
Not be filling that rank.
That
but we'd be
rank.
Filling that spot.
They will fill in that spot and
Then
possibly replacing the person who would be promoted into that.
in the second position
Second.
would be the 12th position.
And the second position is the one that you had already
We've already had.
asked for, and we already had,
and we had to
and
pass on the person
we
that
had to
that
pass
kind
on.
of
it.
issue.
Okay. Got it. I think this is the right thing to do at this point.
To fill both of them?
Absolutely. Because we already went through this whole exercise. We had already decided that we wanted that new person, and that it was the right thing to do in order to reduce the amount of overtime which is very expensive and which has impacted morale. And then after that happened, and then we even had a candidate that then didn't pass the test, so to speak. And then while that was all happening, we had a sergeant that was on 111F and then is retiring out because he can't come back. And that position will have to be filled. So that leaves 2 openings, and I think we need to fill those. I don't think we can let the department limp along for that long without those positions.
The money piece of it, the other piece I should probably talk about is there's a difference between a sergeant's salary and a patrol officer's salary. So you will have, even if we hired these folks, we're not going to be bumping up against what our actual budget is. If you agree with me, and I'm speaking for Chief Fong, and he may prefer to do, you might prefer him to do the promotion, whatever, but it's not gonna get done on my watch. But if, there's gonna be that gap between the sergeant amount and the patrol officer amount, because our sergeants work the same shifts as the patrol officers do. Does that make sense? So it's not like we're gonna be
Yeah.
bumping up against any budget issues.
Yeah.
And you will have, it'll be less.
Yeah.
My concern is if Chief was here full-time and we had our leadership team in place, we would have the ability to transition these officers. My one concern is that we are in flux right now, and there isn't that transition piece for a new officer. So the reason for the recommendation to wait is for not only to pick your team, like I know that sounds, but also that we don't have the support staff in place right now in this little interim period. So if it could wait until the interim is here to do that quick assessment, put together that transition team, then that's my concern. And I understand Chief's recommendation and two chiefs recommendation. But that is what I would like the board to consider as well.
When you talk about interim, are you talking about we're between Chief Fisher and Chief Fong, or the interim?
Chief Fong to the
coming in?
permanent
There's just,
chief.
there isn't the person right now to transition a new officer into the role in a leadership sense, while one chief is moving out and one chief is moving in. That's my concern.
But doesn't the timing work out such that we would, you have to vet, we've already gone through a process of vetting them, but you have to extend the offer. There's a contractual negotiation that takes place. Then we have to do the background check or that final check. And so by the time that all takes place, Chief Fong will be in position, right?
Right.
It'd be him that's at the swearing in.
Yeah.
It'd be
I-
Chief Fong at the
yeah.
swearing in, not me.
No.
This is gonna take,
Right.
this is gonna take a month.
Right. They're not sending.
We have 2 FTOs, we have
Right.
2 people that can train. Those.
No, but
two.
it's,
Yeah,
I heard Chief Fong earlier articulate kind of a fresh look at the department, the needs. Like, we're on the cusp of that. Like, why wouldn't we do that? I mean, it sounds bad, maybe Chief Fisher, but we got a guy who says it's gonna take a fresh look. I'd personally like to have a fresh look. I don't know, but I just have to say my own bias, and if the will of the board is to go elsewhere, that's fine, but I'm not sure that the way we're pursuing the level of staffing of that department is commensurate with the kind of town we have. And we face tremendous budget pressures, and we have to look at all kinds of things. And I just don't know. I'd like to have that look. So that's my view. Not that the process can run in parallel. Of course it can run in parallel. I'd like to have that look and not presuppose an answer. And if we lose some candidates, Chief Fisher said, it's a good place to work. I mean, yeah, maybe it's a little bit of a waste. I get it, but it's a risk, I think, given how close we are to that I would personally advocate.
And my feeling on this is that, when we went through the process this summer, we didn't realize that Chief Fisher would be moving
Well, that's true,
on,
we didn't.
right? So I think that's the thing that has made me step back and think, well, so this may, as difficult as it is to have him move on, that's happening. And this does give us an opportunity to have some fresh eyes on the police department and services we're providing and what our community needs are. Because there are 2 positions, one is the one that we agreed to fund in the FY23 budget. The other is a position that's been created by the retirement of a current officer. I would be comfortable filling one of those, the one with the
Retirement.
probably the retirement position. Because I am concerned, I don't want to have a lot of stress on the current police department. And we did go through a pretty thorough process that Victor Liang was part of, in looking at the overtime, that whole study that he was engaged in representing the FinCom, which I thought was pretty thorough. And it did, the recommendation was to try to address the overtime by having another position, another full-time officer. We will get that because the retiring officer was not contributing really to the department. So well,
You're actually arguing for both.
no, I'm
That's what
arguing
hearing.
for just the retiring officer.
But
being
you
filled.
acknowledge that, I mean, I don't want to play both sides, but you acknowledge that
Yes, that we
that
did.
Victor did a
Yeah.
thorough analysis and
Yeah.
concluded with John.
Yeah.
Basically, that's what I was
I'm
saying.
not saying that that's wrong.
Oh, but
I'm
I
not-
feel like things have changed somewhat, and also because we're taking a harder look at shared services and.
Well,
seems
that's
to
the
me
thing. I just
we
feel like
should Go ahead and.
there's a point in time, and we're gonna talk to FinCom in a few
Thing,
minutes.
saying,
And I'm sorry, in some ways, maybe this is the first one up, but there's a point at which we have to stop talking and start walking,
Mhm.
on making meaningful inroads into where our operating budget is headed.
Yeah.
And you can always find it, oh, we have to do this, we have to do that. I know that, but I don't know where that line is. And if this isn't the line, then fine. But there is a point in time where we have to start thinking hard about it.
Right.
Can I just ask, does this impact the operational, if it's protocol and efficiency of the police force? If we were not to fill this, but one or two or both of these?
Yeah, so that's the other piece. Like, this is like a driving force in our profession right now. The mental health, the well-being of police departments, police officers. What was the front page of New York Times last weekend or New York Post? Record number of police officers left the New York NYPD in the last few months. Like, the idea of the everybody working all the time thing, it is like not, and we can't work this police department. You can, especially with 9 police officers, which is what you're talking about. So you have 9 plus the chief. That's you're there every time somebody wants a day off, it's at least somebody's got to cover, like every single time. And it already runs at a couple of overtime shifts with 9. So it's an operational piece too. And if we have anything, and we've had serious incidents here. You want from anything from Halloween a few years ago when it was all hands on decks because of snowstorms, because of weather events. We've had serious crimes, like things can befall this lovely town that it takes people to do. And where we have people ready to go. So it's operational is actually the first reason for even asking for this. The second is because I think we have gone through all the exercises and, proven this, the police department's going to run best with 12 and really no reason to expect it's going to change going forward for any substantial amount of time. So I know it's probably more than you want to talk about tonight, but I think it's an important time to talk about it because, it's going to take months. So we don't do this now. And it lands back on Ken. These folks go away. That's another 3.5 to 4 months to run this whole process. Cause that's only fair to do it, thoroughly. So. I'm sorry, but that's to your point, Travis. It's operational. It's what the agency's like to work at.
Is it budget neutral? Like, ask the FinCom guys. We had already approved one. So that one was already in the budget. We just haven't hired. And the replacement is budget neutral because the guy's going off the clock.
And we've got the outgoing chief who we all said is, we gave him accolades about how great he's done, is saying we need this. We've got the, new chief coming in has said he thinks he needs that. And you just asked the budget question. Yes.
Yes, Ken.
If I may, so I definitely understand Ryan's concern about bringing on a person that would effectively have been vetted by the old chief. And I'm sorry? Okay, certainly. And so, I think maybe if it makes sense that, either myself, Ryan, or both of us could meet with the candidate or candidates as soon as possible, if they're part of the process, if they've already been, wherever they are in the process, we can get a sense of whether or not they'd be a good fit, if, we should go ahead or we should pause and wait. We can make that recommendation, both Ryan and myself. And then, if they would be kind of a green light, then we would just move ahead. It would take at least a month for the process to move ahead anyways. I probably will be here and up and running and ready to onboard anybody by that point in time, so.
So again, I want to clarify. Our next meeting is November 11th. So on November 11th, you would bring those two names to us and ask for permission to run. Because that's that's our new process these days, right?
15th, but yeah.
Is it, sorry, the 15th?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
We'll both be working by then.
Can
And-
they wait that long?
Well, I think if I call,
If they
them,
know
say,
it's
your
going
conditional offer of employment's coming. And it's gotta get this.
because you're not ready to ask us tonight, so it has to wait until the 15th.
Yep.
Right?
I mean, I have both their permissions to say their names, but if we do that, then those
No,
conditional
don't
offers
do
gotta
So
go.
let's
No.
not do that tonight. And
That's what I thought the preferential way
Yeah.
to be.
Yes.
I'm not gonna
Appreciate-
back it up. 'Cause
Yeah.
We'll be ready to go.
But-
I'll work on setting up their psychological and medical starting the 16th, 17th, like that stuff. We'll be ready to go.
So I think it would be great to have you, Ken and Ryan, do a sort of a follow-up interview of the two candidates. Is again, just
Yeah,
to check.
I
on the
just want
fit
to
and
be clear, I believe and trust in Chief Fisher's recommendation. If he was gonna be here, yeah, let's bring
Right,
it, but he's not.
right,
So
right.
that's the only concern I have is I don't know how they're gonna transition with a new chief. I don't think the town's hasn't had one in 11 years. That's my
Right,
concern. It is
right.
not whether or not Chief Fisher can make a good, of course he can. I know nothing about
Yes.
policing, so.
Yeah.
We haven't heard from Nathan. I was
Yeah,
wondering.
Nathan, did you want to offer, let me just clarify for when you were off. So we,
I already-
you
told
did,
him.
you told him, oh,
I
okay,
texted him.
all right, great. Yeah, do you have a
So-
comment on?
Yeah, so
your-
I just missed the first of all, I'm sorry I dropped off. It seems that Apple has added a new feature with wireless. It keeps dropping on me. So I think the part that I missed is we're talking about whether or not we move forward with both the retirement and the new position that we gave.
Yeah.
Yes, or
Okay.
one of them or none of them.
I think that it makes sense to have, the most recent proposal, I think, makes sense, have everybody meet again, just kind of like a final check, and then come back next time and we can work it out based upon that. I think that makes complete sense. I'm not opposed to hiring them.
Okay, well, it sounds like we're all comfortable with that then. Is that clear, everybody clear on where we're
Yeah.
going? Okay. All right. So thanks, Chief Fisher. Sorry, we had these, didn't
Yeah.
didn't
Well,
have
do your
this
will.
officially on the agenda, but I'm glad you brought it up. It's
Yeah.
important to get
Thank
it,
you very
resolved. And thank you,
Thank you.
Ken, for stepping up to help out. So very briefly, then, I'm just going to quick review here. So to make sure that we're all comfortable with the proposal here for the search committee, I put a note in the packet. The idea would be a 5-person group, relatively small, hopefully fairly easy to schedule people to meet. And it would, operate similarly to the way it did with Community Paradigm, but obviously this particular, whatever firm we choose, they have this is going to be for a police chief, so it may be different, but the idea would be our screening committee would play a role in interviewing sort of the top candidates or maybe earlier in the process. But then they would be involved in recommending 2 or 3 highly qualified candidates to the select board. And with the goal of trying to have this done by January. So the description of the group is one member of the police department, somebody who's not currently in a leadership role, a member of the Council on Aging, one member from the dispatch department, and one member of the select board, and a member representing the Carlisle community. And I put a letter into the Mosquito this week, just explaining very briefly what this committee is and inviting people to submit letters of interest to Ryan, or actually, yeah, or maybe Jen Gibbons, I think it was, yeah, to Town Hall by next Tuesday, by the 1st, so that ideally by the 15th, we could have our screening committee ready to appoint. And I'm interested in the select board. I want to ask about the select board position. I'm wondering, Travis, if you would be interested in serving as the select board member. And my thinking is that Travis is a new member to the select board, has sort of fresh eyes, and I think it would be a good role for Travis to play for the select board. But again, I haven't, gone through the rest of you on this. So just wanted to know though, Travis, whether you'd be interested in serving.
Sure, that sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And if anybody else was really dying to do it, speak now or forever hold your peace.
I just have a question about the makeup of the select board, if I could.
Yeah, so,
Totally
sorry,
get-
I did finish it. Okay, yeah, go ahead, Nathan.
I totally get, Council on Aging. But I'm just wondering, just the thoughts I'm not against it, but what were the thoughts behind picking that one council over all the councils that we have?
Well, it's primarily because there's so much interaction between the police department and the Council on Aging. A lot of I could have the chief comment on this, but a lot of the service that particular population is one that our police department provides a lot of service to. Do you want to add just
No,
very quick?
I concur. I concur with
Okay.
the makeup, and that's the most valid reason. It's a good
Yeah.
question, Nathan, but that's my opinion too, when you said that.
Okay, all right, thanks.
All right, any other comments or questions on this?
Just-
Ryan, did you?
Just one
Yeah.
tweak, Barney. So this committee would be helping with the selection firm to send people to the assessment center, and then you would get that
Mhm.
final. So this would go to the
Yeah.
assessments, they would be assessed, and then they would come in for. Then that analysis would come in front of the board. So they wouldn't follow the assessment center and send names to you
It would come in advance of the assessment center.
unless you want me to
Okay.
rewrite the RFP.
Got it. Okay. That's helpful. Yeah. Okay,
Can I ask a point of clarification?
yes.
Would you have any interest in taking the president of each union? So that, because you have a patrol officer and a dispatch like that. I'm just trying to figure out how to,
Talk about
do you want to,
this.
do you want to
Yeah.
have them apply? Because I'm just trying to think, these things are due next week, so. But anyway, I think the two folks that make most sense to me are the president of each union. They know, and they're both, working, doing the job. So it's not a sergeant or lieutenant, it's a patrol officer and the lead dispatcher.
Mhm.
Like they might be the first perfect two people. This is the first I'm hearing about this.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure I have my homework. This is gonna
Right.
get done before Ken, so I need to either
right.
talk to these two people or solicit the letters from the members that
Right.
you would review. But frequently in these searches, it's the person that represents the unions.
Right. Do you have an opinion on that, Ryan?
I don't.
Okay. I'm comfortable with that.
Does Ken-
Yeah, or Ken, do you have an opinion on that?
I guess it makes sense. I agree with Chief Fisher because you have the
Yeah.
elected officials of the unions representing the members,
Yeah,
and they would have the best interests of the police department in mind. So
okay,
as opposed. to-
good. That's a helpful suggestion. Thank you,
Thank you.
Chief.
Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Okay,
Okay.
so I don't think we need to do a formal vote on this, just want to get your input, and then we will see what we're getting back in terms of the Carlisle community member, and then we'll check in with the Council on Aging about who they'd like to have represent that. All right, good, and we'll come back at the next meeting. Okay, well, thanks for your patience there,
Yeah,
members of the
half an
Finance
hour
Committee
late,
and
sorry.
Chief Fisher and Chief Fong. Thank you so much
Thank you, Chuck.
for
Good to see you.
your
Thank you,
help
Chief.
tonight.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah,
Thanks.
okay. Well, hi, come on up. Yeah, please join us.
Let's see.
All right. So you have to share the
So-
mic. Hope that's okay.
I think we
Yeah.
can handle that.
Where
So,
is
Now, so.
the rest of your committee? Not.
Oh, well, no, I don't.
It's just you two?
Yeah. Oh, you're a bunch of people on now, so.
Yeah, but I don't
is
see
it
the
just two
committee.
of you representing the FinCom?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So James Catacchio and Scott Triola, great, welcome, thanks for being
Thank you.
here. All right, so we're not doing this then as a joint meeting, but
No.
we'll do this as a discussion, and that's great, that's great. So I understand that you all met recently to go over, I guess was it with you, Ryan, or?
Yes.
Yeah, and so we've got a great budget calendar here, which looks terrific. And it's, are you all comfortable with what we have now for the budget process?
Yeah, we are. The timeline is shifted just a little bit, but really it'll work well. I mean, as the board knows, we were doing the meetings in October, those marathon meetings, before we would get really even a formal budget from everyone. And then we would really have some downtime in November and December where maybe we would have 1 or 2 meetings, but really for FinCom, it was kind of slower 2 months, and then it'll ramp back up in January. So we're comfortable with it because Ryan will be doing some legwork over those months and then presenting the budget to us in early January, I think was the plan, right?
Early December.
Early December, sorry. And then we'll start our marathon meetings in January.
Mm.
So that process is just more or less shifted towards that period. And we might be able to use November and December to have some preliminary meetings with the schools, or if there's any warrants that maybe we should learn a little bit and we can get ahead of, or anything of that nature.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so we're very comfortable with it. In terms of the overall process, I think that probably we'll be sending the guideline out sometime in maybe early February or so, mid-February, meet with the select board to present the guideline budget sometime around then, before the letter goes out, of course. But I think overall it should work quite well. Our big concerns going into it, I mean, the number one is the school, is the region and the shift in students. We don't have formal numbers around that yet, but it's certainly putting some budgetary constraints on the town. So rough estimates to start is somewhere around $500,000 increase on our side, on the Carlisle side, this year, and then 250, 300. Again, we don't know the formal numbers, but the following year to add on top of that. The past 3 years, the numbers have worked well in our favor, and especially during the unknowns of COVID, that worked well. So this is not a surprise for us, but it is cash flow that is certainly going to be affecting our budget. So what we'll really communicate is that the budget has constraints as a result of that, certainly, and that anything that the individual departments are looking for, maybe additional asks and so forth, they should be aware of that shift of dollars going towards the region. So that's really the number one challenge that we see for this budget cycle. Otherwise, we haven't been presented with any major other costs that might be coming out of left field this year, fortunately. And that's one that, again, we were aware of and we were able to plan for a bit. But it is certainly something that is a major item and priority for us. So we're also curious, the select board, what priorities, of course, you all might have so that we're on the same page from a communication standpoint as well.
Yeah, and then Brian, you've written up a fairly extensive memo here.
Did you get a
Um,
copy of this?
Have you seen what
With
Brian put in the
October
packet?
26th?
Oh, okay.
Oh.
That's our bad. Okay.
Really? That's.
Well, what we talked about, what Brian has outlined here is that we would sort of discuss together kind of what priorities we wanted to communicate to departments.
Yep.
And then what direction we want to give about putting their budgets together. And so, for instance, one question I think that we wanted to discuss is, given some of the constraints we're looking at, do we want to, and we think about sort of what departments might typically be thinking about, sometimes they're thinking about increases in staff, sometimes they may be thinking about other expenses. And whether we, as a select board and potentially in conjunction with FinCom or not, do we want to send a message that, given where we are in terms of having sort of mid-level staff, that we may find we need to provide more support, more financial support to keep them here longer, and also with the wage and salary restructuring that we got, from the study that we had done, and then just as Brian is getting on board and what he's seeing, right, and determining who's doing what, and that there may be some things we want to do in terms of expenditures that are around staff salaries, and then the message would be, so we want you, try to go with a flat expense budget, or at least recognize that you may not get what you want if we're trying to address some of the staff salary levels. And then there's a question about debt levels. So I don't want to steal your or try to paraphrase all of the really interesting stuff that you put forward to us, Ryan. So maybe do you want to sort of take this? Do we want to talk first about FY24 and sort of what our thoughts are about sort of that? What is that guidance going to include in terms of what we might think are priorities? I'd start with that, and then we could move on to some of the other points you have here
Sure.
in this note, or do
So,
you want to offer something as an overview first?
It's my fault that you didn't get the packet, but it's everything we talked about in the meeting. So that was a disconnect on my end. We'll fix that in the future. So the things we talked about at the finance committee that I'm trying to understand are, given the constrictions, and I went over what I think the revenue is going to be, what Kim thinks the revenue is going to be, and what the expenses are. What is the direction to the boards, the committees, and the departments, and what they should be submitting? So this initial guidance. A lot of them have expressed to me that they need additional staff, or that they want certain service increases, et cetera. When you compare that to what I think is going to be available revenues for operating, there's just not a lot of room, especially knowing what we know about the regional schools. So conveying that message early, I think, is important. It helps structure people's requests, and then makes those meetings that the finance committee has just a little bit more fruitful in January, I'm sure. And then the rest of the discussions are around reserves and capital. So Carlisle has what I believe to be a structural deficit in its operating budget. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody in the room. Matching service levels to available revenues on the operating side, but on the capital and free cash and reserve side, Carlisle's in a very strong position. So really digging into how you want to allocate those funds, what you're comfortable with, where you want your free cash and your capital to go, will make really strong headway into a lot of the discussions that I've been having with the MFC and other boards that are trying to figure out what the future here looks like. And that will definitely talk about what David and Kate were instructing me earlier, that financial model that's going to describe what we can afford. So understanding reserve levels, understanding capital spending focuses, and debt levels will allow you to answer those questions of what capacity you would go to the residents for something like a large building or a large capital project. So it's two really different things. One is the operating budget, and that's always the short target, and really conveying that message that this is a tight year, while also saying that, hey, we do have some money to do other things, and they're not the same.
Right.
But
Pot of
Yeah.
money.
So can we stop there before, because I think you made a very good point. So let me try to translate what I think I heard. on the operating side, the demands exceed the revenue available, right? And kind of every year that's true, but so let's just focus on that for a few minutes. So you on your, one of the pages here, it says estimated new revenue for fiscal 24 million too. I wasn't sure what that is. Is that new growth?
So that is the 2.5% on
That's the
top of
2.5
property
on
tax
top of
plus new growth.
What
Plus new
page are
growth.
you on, David?
I have no idea what page it is. So
Oh.
it's
That's
36 in
on
the
PDF
PDF.
36.
It's the last
Um,
one. Yeah,
36,
just,
okay.
So,
Got it.
and of that, so new growth, that's the actual last year new growth, or what's,
So this is.
or that's the 300,000. I'm trying to tie those together, so.
So the top number, the 1.2 includes
the 300,000.
2.5%,
Yep.
300, which is a rough
Yep,
estimate
yeah,
of
yeah,
new growth.
Yep,
Potential state aid, which we do
yep,
think
I
will be
got it. Okay,
reasonable.
so it's all those things.
And then
Right.
generally keep your local receipts flat. So there isn't really an increase there unless you want to. Up
Well,
that.
I mean, it sounds like they've been declining, but if I understand these percentages.
Local receipts are building permits, that kind of stuff.
Correct. So
But-
typically you target around 90% of actual, so
Hmm.
that if you have a bad year, you don't run out of money. But
Right.
if you have a good year, then you have free cash.
So we're looking, yeah, this is a different way than we usually look, at least I do. So this is
It
the
is.
deltas off of last year as a baseline, right?
A conservative delta. yeah.
Okay, so it's saying whatever we raised last year, 1.2 mil more, the 2.5 that we could do, the 300,000 of new growth, the 111, 112 of state aid more than last year in dollars, and basically flat on receipts. Okay, and then on the, so that's on the put side, let's say. On the call side, you got the things below, right? These are the things competing for that 1.2, right?
Correct.
And I see CCHS at 350. James, I think I heard you say 500,000.
For next year, yeah, the rough estimates that we've heard is 500,000.
All right.
That, the 350 is just the allocation shift. We expect them to also increase their budget too, so.
Right, so it's more than that.
Ah,
That's the
okay.
5, well, we don't know what the budget is yet.
Right.
but
Okay.
Okay, no, that's a fair statement. And the CPS is all growth right now because demographically, not that much of a change. That's the real budget growth. That 400,000 extra would be the 3% say that they.
Yeah, I
No, we don't know for them, but I mean, like you said, it's the biggest piece. All right, so it sounds like, again, just at a very high level, all the extra money's already sort of, there's a call on all that extra money.
3, 7,
I was
And-
extremely
9.
conservative with the expense side and
Okay,
I
million.
think pretty accurate with the revenue side.
okay, so that's good. No, it's good to know.
So the,
What, a million is spent, but you still have 200,000.
No, because it's actually 150 is, he undercut it, he under budgeted by
Just got rid of
150.
it.
Oh,
So it just
okay,
went
so-
away. It's 1,000,002. It's 1,000,002 and 1,000,002. It's
Okay, so
perfectly
it's a
balanced.
wash. Okay,
Right.
well, that's better.
So our work here is
than
done.
a-
But I mean, okay, but it's a good point because in this, you don't have these new hires and all that stuff that you're making,
That's
right?
correct.
So I mean, there's a lot,
Right.
so we're behind, basically, is what I'm reading, right? We're behind. So the philosophical argument that you were, and then at the very bottom, you have this little thing called COLA. And, you know, we know, and I certainly know personally as a business owner of 100-something people, there's a lot of, you know, wage pressure, right? So we can expect a fair amount of wage pressure. So again, and it's very helpful the way you're doing. It's good to have this at the very high level now. We're kind of, as you said, structurally deficient or something, you said, right?
Structural deficit.
Structural deficit, that's what you're talking about. So I'd like to hear from these guys on, again, the capital side, I get it, we got lots of free cash and maybe we can do some things, but you know, again, philosophically, right? More people want money than the money will be available. There is some free cash, we don't like to. As
Yeah.
your way long ago predecessor, Thornton Ash said, we don't like the peanut butter of the free cash indiscriminately, but so I'm curious your read on all that.
I mean, in many ways, I think this is similar to the conversation we have at the start of the budget cycle every year. If you look at the contractual wage increases, if you look at what we expect for mandatory expenses like retirement, healthcare, insurance.
Yeah.
When you layer that in, normally in a typical budget year, that might be 1.5% off the top, just to maintain existing service. You layer on the allocation shift at the high school, that's another 1%.
Yeah.
You're at 2.5%.
yeah.
And so that's to maintain current level service. And so if you want to add service somewhere, you're either going to have to raise taxes or you're going to have to
Or cut service somewhere
reduce
else,
service somewhere else. And so it's a zero.
which we should be more in the habit of doing. I mean, we tend to add, and we tend not to get rid of the stuff we're not using anymore or not using effectively anymore. So I think, one in, one out. It
I-
should be at least.
And
The goal.
with the new timeline, we really haven't started the budget process from our standpoint yet. And so what the conversation we had with Ryan last time and then with you is really prioritization, as always, will need to happen. What is the select board's priority in terms of, as we look across these requests, and trade-offs will have to be made. Our job is to help make those trade-offs financially. We look to you from a prioritization standpoint of what is most important to the town. That's not our role. Our role is to recommend a budget that meets the requirements and the priorities of the town and the select board. So I think at this stage, it's really having that discussion, layering on how can we used to send out a budget letter in September that would say flat budget, no increases. I think we can have a more effective approach now with Ryan at this early stage, but from you, for us, it's big picture. What's important here? Where do we see a need to increase service, reduce service? Is it more important to take care of the existing staff versus bring in new staff? So I think that's the level of discussion we need to have.
I completely agree with that. I guess, and I like this approach. I like this conversation now because we haven't been having those as well in the past. I think it's great. And I like sort of the way Ryan laid it out. But if we just start with conceptually what Ryan laid out, there's an increase in revenue by some amount, and pretty much all of it's spoken for on things we really don't have much control over. Assessment, insurances, blah, 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 and COLA. And then now we go to the asks, and not specific asks, but we know, right? And Ryan has been right out front, right? We need to upgrade some of the staff. We need more staff for things. We just saw the chiefs saying, we got to maintain this 11, 12 full-time professionals. I don't know if that's true, but that's what they say. So I guess I'm not understanding. I get it conceptually, and I don't know where to go from here, which is why I'm so crotchety when they come in with these requests, because I do not know. John Fisher comes in, he's very credible, he's done the analysis, these guys are great, but I don't really know. I don't really know if a little town like us, where people call cops to get the cat out of the tree, needs all these people.
Yeah.
And I see this. I see that we are structurally deficient. Like it's your house. The timbers aren't strong enough to support the house. I don't know what to do. I honestly don't.
Yeah. I mean, the one question we did not ask the chiefs is right now, each shift is being.
I wanted to, but I didn't want to be difficult.
I was
more difficult than I was.
Exactly. My tongue was starting to get
That's
bloody.
analysis, right?
Well, but that's the
Do
analysis
you
that we
need
need to have.
3
Do we need
cruisers in the
3?
daytime? 6 officers.
Or could we do it with 2? Because that's what would solve the overtime problem.
Right.
I think what's needed at the staff department and board level is I could come in and make an argument for every department as well, increasing the services.
Oh.
They're all correct. The chief is correct. He needs that in order to run the department the way he thinks it needs to be run. The council on aging, the library, every one of these departments is going to fight to have the best services possible because you've told them to do that. What we need to know is how fast, how big, and how much do you want to grow? So it doesn't all have to be done in a year, which I tried, communicating with the finance committee. There are some initiatives that you can do in a limited budget. They just have to be spread out over time. But just trying to hear, I've heard many priorities from the board, personnel, potentially COLA this year, other things that are important. We're going to have to pick some, and just want to make sure that conversation is being had.
Yeah.
And again, I think, as you say, you want to start this dialogue now with departments before they meet with FinCom, and you want to set the right expectation now
Mhm.
And then when we meet for our marathon sessions, it's the discussion from our vantage point, informed from your vantage point. So I think really, it sounds like what you want to do with this memo, not having seen it, is set that expectation so that you can start having your conversations leading up to the budget meetings. Is that fair?
Correct. Yeah. We have a staff meeting in November where I would articulate sort of this early vision.
Yeah.
And not tell departments not to request what you need, because they should, but you need to bring a compelling argument if you're gonna have to decide amongst all the departments.
And I have to say that FinCom has for years been asking the departments to say what they need, but that also to bring alternative solutions to the problem. And I think you've been having a hard time getting that kind of input from the department. So yeah, you might need an extra, staff, but they say they need an extra staff. Have you guys considered talking about sharing it or getting some software in that could, take the place of, half a staff or whatever? And those are the things that have eluded us. Let's put it that way.
And we're not, like you are, we're not in the day-to-day. We don't
Well,
know.
Neither do we.
Can you get it done with
Right.
half of what you're requesting? We can't make that judgment.
Yeah.
I think our hope is that Ryan brings that lens to the discussion, and that's why I think we're excited about having this lead time where he can meet with the departments, get up to speed, and provide that visibility that we don't have. We can make spreadsheet trade-offs, but we don't
Yes.
really know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, it's like an engineering problem. You don't know all the things when you start, but you know what you know when you start chipping away at what you know to identify what you don't know. So what I know is we have essentially zero leverage on CCHS. I know
Well,
from
fair enough. Yeah. I mean,
deep
the
personal
day-to-day
experience,
Yeah.
we're gonna get a bill and we're gonna pay that bill, right? Okay. And I know insurance is insurance, and I know staff is gonna demand a COLA that in some way approaches.
Could you
the-
pick that up?
Sorry?
Speak up, I think.
Can you speak up?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I speak up?
I know.
All right. So I know those things and I know we have no control. I know that the school is the school here is the single
next.
biggest line item. And I applaud that there's a 3% placeholder, but that's still a lot of money. That's $400,000. And I've been on both sides of that, as you well know, and it's not easy. If you say to them, no, it's got to be a 2 or a 1. They're like, we have a union contract and we've got, they have the same pressures. So right away I start with starting with a 0 budget, and then Ryan comes in with his requests. So yes, we'll do all that on a detail and everybody will make a compelling argument, but there will be trades. But even at trades, if you have to get back to a 0, what trades can you make? Nobody's going to take less budget. We can decide, again, we could say, it's a tough year. We have 4.5 million or whatever free cash. Maybe it's a year we spend 500 or 200 or something, some free cash on OpEx, which we generally, don't like, but maybe we do that. But we have to realize, we're taking a drug that's very addictive.
Yeah.
We have to be careful.
And you don't want to do that for operating budget.
So I'm
really-
still looking for sort of deeper guidance of how we're going to go about doing what you're saying, because I don't know how we get there.
Well, I'm just looking at a couple of things that Brian has on his list here under the what he would like from the select board. And so talking about free cash generation and also reserve levels. This is on page 34. So it says for the purpose of the budgeting, that local receipt estimates are conservative. I don't know how to interpret that. Is that very conservative or is it is it much lower than, is it as conservative as we might have been doing it in prior years? Because to me, you say this is good budgeting, but it limits the revenue for spending. So making that judgment is something that I think we need to rely on you and Kim and FinCom to say to us, is there some room in here? Rather than going with the very conservative estimate that then is forcing us to ask people to do something that maybe we don't have to do at that level. And then looking at the reserve levels, again, we've got a 15% reserve right now. What I've heard over the years is that 10 to 11% is really good, is a, what's the right way they describe that? But that's, pardon?
Best practice.
Yeah, best practice. Thank you. So if I just again, from a layperson's perspective, I would look at those two and say, is this the year that we need to have different numbers because of what we're talking about, what we're facing in terms of the, other expenses? Because if you look at those ones that David is describing, then we don't have any room. I mean, the ones we have little control over, we don't have a lot of room.
But Ryan, I think that's a good, lens through which to look at it, but bear in mind the difference between OpEx and CapEx. And
Yeah,
I think, as I said, it's very dangerous territory to begin to deploy your surpluses in operational expenses. What I want, a question for you
I
guys,
don't
'cause it's
think
been a
that's
while.
what, excuse me, but I don't think that was what Ryan is suggesting.
Ryan is not suggesting, but Barney's kind of saying, well, you've got
Oh.
all this extra money
Yeah, no, no.
and, so I
No,
want to ask.
that
Can
actually-
I just interrupt for a second?
Nathan, yeah,
Can I interject here for a second?
Yeah.
So I believe that, so I totally get, we were just talking to Chief Fisher about, hey, can we really afford this? And, we're kind of looking around the edges at everything. And, I think we've talked about this a lot. I think it's even in our goals for this year. We have to stop looking at this year by year by year, right? We have
Yes.
to try to model out what is happening, what's going to happen in 5 and 10 years, because that
Yeah.
will force the discussions to happen, right? If we say, okay, this is what we want to do for the police department, and this is what the growth is going to be, if we say this is what it's looking, because we can look back at least a few years on what we think it's going to cost for CCHS. If we can model these things out 5 or 10 years, that will be the answer to us, right? Because then we're not doing tax increases year by year. We're having to look at the big picture and say, okay, we think this is going to be our revenue. This is what our expenses are going to be. What are we going to be able to do? And that will force the hard decisions to happen. I just don't think we're ever going to do it if we're just doing it year by year.
yeah,
Because
Yeah.
year by year, we can always figure it out, but all we're doing is pushing the ball down.
yeah.
We're delaying the inevitable.
For the reserve levels, I think we need to set what we feel our debt capacity is. I think we should take some of the extra money we have in reserve, put it in a stabilization fund, because then, so, when you have debt, it goes down, 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 right? But then you put a new project in, like we are thinking about, and then suddenly it spikes up. The stabilization fund then comes into play, and
Can balance
it cuts those peaks down, so you don't have
Right.
this,
Well, yeah,
wild
and that was
swings.
my question to
And-
you guys. It cuts the interest, right? Where does it, how do you turn a CapEx surplus into an OpEx help? If you do it, Kate's saying you have a $25 million public safety building, and guess what? We salted away $5 million. We're gonna not take out,
Yeah.
we're not gonna finance all 35 million.
Debt service is part of the operating.
Right, so that's how you translate it into a lower.
Exactly, but yeah.
Yeah.
But so I do think we should consider taking some of the extra reserve funds and to capitalize our capital stabilization account, which has 0 in it right now.
Right,
Does
we
it?
don't even have
No,
one.
we don't have.
No, we do have it.
Yeah,
We
stabilization,
passed it.
not capital.
We,
Right,
we,
We have it. It doesn't have any money.
have it, but no.
We have it. it
we
doesn't
have, yeah, we voted it in, but we didn't fund it. So I think now this year would be the year to fund it. Certain.
Didn't we just spend it because we said that the school's 500 and so we lost the 150 or my?
No, we really,
Thank you.
Two different things.
yeah.
Yeah, we already have a stabilization fund,
Yeah.
which is separate
And I will say that the region is a bit of an outlier, and we knew this increase was coming, and so part of the reason we
Right.
wanted to maintain a high level of free cash last year was to potentially, we don't like to use free cash in the operating budget, but
Right.
school in and of
Because of
itself, the
that.
allocation shifts, you almost need a stabilization budget to flatten that out.
Yeah.
And so that's part of was last year's thinking was we get the projections for the next 5 years we're expecting is.
October 1st isn't that the date that they
Yeah,
did
then
the
they-
count?
And then they project forward. So we know,
Ah.
we expect next year, we're gonna see another slight increase.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's operating budget, but that is something we also need to stabilize.
Yeah. But that should not be stabilized from the reserve funds.
No, but that's where you
But-
could apply. some
But that's
free
But
cash.
where-
yes,
yeah.
that's free cash, but that's different than reserve funds.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
We need to keep our
Pots of
labels,
money. Right.
yeah, our pots of money kind of
I wouldn't do it quite that steep.
set.
So you have two levers, just to address some of the stuff you're talking about. So one of them is to create free cash. You either say you're gonna bring in this much money and you bring in more.
Yeah.
Or you say you're gonna spend and you spend less.
Right,
So the budget does have a little bit of room in it, and then the revenue it's pretty conservative, so we always come in over what, you should do that intentionally.
Yes.
It's how much.
You
What
don't
I'm
wanna-
saying is you're very conservative with your revenue. You could bump that up, but that has consequences. Because then you don't have cushions and reserves. And then in terms of debt, it's close, Kate. So you want to set, the operating budget holds, say, 2% debt. When you are reaching it, you don't borrow anymore. When you go low, you keep the capacity in the operating budget, so you can borrow, but you never go over. So you should try to borrow in a 10-year pattern, so you're always at 2%. Because once you lose it in the operating budget, it will go
It-
to this, to the school or to the
Exactly.
departments. So saying we will carry 2% debt in our operating budget as a policy and as an approach. That's the story. And then we can figure out how to fit capital in.
What's our debt percentage now?
Still working on that model.
Yeah. And
But what do we see? Travis and I are looking at your, I don't know, it's the stoplight chart. I don't know what page it is, but
35.
I think what you're hinting at here is add 100,000 to stabilization. Fund the first piece of the capital stabilization to 250. And vacuum out 1.5 million of free cash and use it for something. Is that what that green and red thing is telling us?
I'm saying be intentional with your use of reserve. So
yeah,
typically your stabilization would be where you keep your savings, your 10%.
Yep.
Free cash would then be available for capital.
Right.
And
But
then if you
if
have
you're-
$1 million this year in capital and 500 this year, use your capital stabilization to create a baseline.
Right.
That Kate's.
But we may not have,
5%.
so we're, yes, in theory, I think, but we're on the cusp of perhaps a very large capital expenditure in a public safety building. And it's a different discussion, but we've seen, I would say, capacity constraint by the MFC to actually spend enough. They just can't spend it. Now, maybe we need more people and to manage projects, but we've funded it every year and they never spend it because it's slow. So I
Yeah.
want to go back to something you raised, Scott, and we've talked about this in the past, and I can't remember on which committee it was, but when you see these demographic steps, like you said, it's, 350 this year, maybe it's 250. I heard you say, the demographic model suggests 3 years or 4 years of increases, and then it probably modulates back. I mean, it's not crazy. And I see this model here. If we're $1 million plus over on what maybe is a desirable free cash level, and yes, we don't like actually using it for operating expenses, but if we can model, and goes back exactly to what Nathan's saying, if we can model that 4-year
Looking, yeah, where it's
blip
going.
and utilize free cash, not all at once, but have that plan to push some free cash into it to kind of just ease the pressure, which is really what Ryan's saying. We've created our own pressure because we've been so conservative that when we need it in the left pocket, but since the right pocket's bulging, but you can't move it. So we don't have any change in the left pocket. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Which pocket?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I we haven't even, we had the initial conversation with Ryan, with FinCom. We haven't even started to review and discuss this stuff. I think what I'm hearing is at a high level desire, like it's important from your standpoint that we start working on these stabilization funds, and it sounds like a priority. And you don't have to vote on this or anything, but what I'm hearing
It's a
is say,
philosophical
Yes.
discussion.
how can we model out, how can we cap the, flatten out the curves so that the peaks aren't so low and the valleys aren't so low and the peaks aren't so high on some of these items. As we try to get it's gonna be tight, like we're looking at the master plan and public safety. There's a lot of big potential projects on the horizon. There's not gonna be any let up on the budget operational CapEx. And so I think no matter what the final numbers are, we have to understand as a town, what is our priority?
Yeah.
When we identify that trade-offs need to be made, what is the methodology we're using to make those trade-offs? As we look at the size of the police force or public safety or, guidance to the schools, like how do we, as a town, what service do we want to provide? How do we balance that with revenue? It's a very high level. I know it's
That's
very
right.
high level, but it's important that we start there as the budget process starts to unwind. We can start informing some of our questions and recommendations around what we're hearing from the select.
Yeah. Well, that high level is the only level the select board should be in too.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are the
Right.
ones that need to get into the weeds. We should not be anywhere near those weeds. And we should only be talking at those higher levels.
But you also need to know the
Decisions
constraints.
trickle down.
Well,
They do.
exactly, but I mean, Yeah.
So how do we, I think that's great. And how do we do that next? Like, it's more of a this side question. I mean, we're meeting, I think, with master planning again soon, next meeting or two, I can't remember. But I mean, our priorities, we spent a long time on our goals, but they're like discrete goals, but Scott's really articulating a broader goal, like. Again, and I don't want to pick on schools, but it is the biggest. The first thing you do when you're budgeting, you got to make sure you pay your mortgage and your taxes, right? You can't negotiate that. You just pay it. So the CCHS bill is a tax. So there's no point in saying we support it. Of course we support it. We have no choice. But we do have a lot of discretion in the school here. And, that's a kind of example where we probably do have to say, all right, public safety, aging, we have to give some guidance. I think that's a fair question for them to ask.
yeah. Yeah.
But it's also a cart before the horse before the cart, because typically we get input, we see what the ask is, and then we add it all up and start making the trade-offs. I think what Ryan's trying to do here in his role is to lead with some guidance in terms of
Which we should do.
Before they even
Absolutely.
before we
submit.
actually have the
Yes.
numbers in. So
Right,
if I'm being vague, it's because we haven't looked at the numbers yet for.
yeah.
No, and that's good because we're doing it at that high level of just not that much available. And as you are reasonably asking us, what's your priority?
Right.
Tell me
Yeah.
where you want us to.
But and Ryan articulated, and tell me if I'm misspeaking, that there was an emphasis or discussion of goals around existing staff. And what does that
Yes,
mean?
let's talk about that.
And if there's a trade-off to be made between adding more hours and doing something for existing staff, what's more
Right,
important? Is it keeping
right.
the people you have and changing the whatever compensation level in certain areas, or is it adding more hours in another area? That's a kind of a key thing. We go through this every year with personnel and staffing.
Yeah.
So like, that's very informative to us as a committee to know where you stand on that.
Yeah, and we haven't talked about that specifically as a board.
No. Yeah.
Right, and,
But we do need to talk about it. And of course, we're also, we have a new town administrator who is our head of personnel, and we will be looking for, excuse me, some direction or, recommendations from him also as to how it'll be best to manage the staff for him and, so because he's the daytime government, he's the one that's got that. He's got the boots on the ground,
Yeah, sure.
the night down. So we depend on.
So in the interest of time, I suggest, this has been really helpful to me, and I'm looking at our calendar, and in the late November, post Thanksgiving and the one meeting that we have in December, it's at the moment, at least, it's somewhat light. You know, people are winding down their activities pre-holiday and so forth. If what we could do is we really should spend, you know, an hour or something in a substantive discussion about some of these trades, and you'll have to support us in what analysis we need with data, but I mean, I think we should try to do that before New Year's so that you guys have a good sense of it when you start that round.
Yeah.
I think I heard you, it's January that you start.
Yeah, that'd be helpful for us ahead of the marathon meetings, which we're looking to do probably the second week of January.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Meet on the
what-
15th.
I'm looking at the budget calendar again. When are you imagining your guidance letter goes out?
So
We haven't, go ahead, Ryan.
assuming was gonna send a draft to the FinCom to see if we can get that out in the next couple weeks, just so that they can send their requests. in,
Okay,
So that we can
So-
get that gathered, unless you want to push it a little bit, we can do.
We're using different terms here.
Yeah.
The guideline budget he's referring to is what is usually what goes out in December after
Mm.
we've met with all the departments.
Right.
It's basically the budget.
First, yeah.
So I think what you're talking about is a guideline as you're preparing your budget. This is what you should be working towards.
Kim and
Yeah.
I are collecting it. Here's the initial guidance.
Kind of more like our September thing.
September. It's usually
Okay. so the thing in the budget calendar that says send departments and boards guidelines at the end of October, that's what you're describing, that's what you're referring to,
yeah,
Ryan, where
like
you're
process
giving
guide.
guidance to the
Yeah.
departments about how to think about putting their budget requests together.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then later in the year, it was in December in the past, I don't know, you're thinking maybe more like January
Yeah.
or
Probably mid-February.
February.
February, okay.
And
There
and-
would be um, there'd be your, what you would have done before in December, which is
No,
kind of setting
Is
up.
that right?
Well,
Or-
TBD. We used to
Okay.
call it a guideline budget in
Yeah.
December, and then we'd say, meet with us if we need to.
Right,
Since it's all pushed back, it's probably gonna be closer to final than it, so we might not want to call it a guideline budget. at that
okay, okay,
Whatever it is, I think you are, before you send it out, I think you would have it ready. We have a budget joint meeting on February 6th.
Yep.
And it seems to me that whatever you had as a draft for that, we would talk about on that date, and then you're sending it out after the 6th of
But there's a-
February.
Yeah.
There's a step in between, Kate, that we were talking about where, again, I feel like we should give them guidance, not
And-
the departments, but the FinCom guidance in advance of their marathon sessions, because,
so, yeah,
will
so in
help.
December,
yeah,
you're thinking,
right, and maybe you don't have the quote unquote guideline letter anymore. I don't know where that ends up, but yeah, it's somewhat, I mean, the other change that's happening is that Ryan and Kim are taking more
Yep.
control of it, right? So that's, you were retailing it, so you were kind of setting expectations and doing a lot of sort of house to house kind of negotiation, and now there's an intermediary, so that's good, right? And so I think if we can spend some time, we have to figure that out
right,
and think ourselves, and we should all take it home and think about it. I mean, what Scott's saying is a good question. Like, do you want to compensate your staff better? Do you want to get more staff? Do you need more professional time or whatever? So we need to kind of get that sorted in our minds, and then we have to give some help for you to begin your
Yeah,
trade-offs.
I
so that
think
when we
that's
come-
coming out though. David, in the budget first draft sent to the finance committee, which would come to us, I imagine, before it went to the finance committee, which has all those things in it, that has Ryan's recommendations as to what to do about staffing and,
Does it?
well,
Kinda.
it does.
kind of,
So I am, as I've discussed in our goals, seeing where you want me to play a role in the budget. I have clear guidance from the FinCom that they want the town hall assessment and analysis, and then the other boards and committees will assemble. Willing to help in any way, but I think it's a learning
Right,
curve.
but there are, there's some big moving parts that are not, they're part of the process, but they go at it different. The biggest one being schools. The schools runs kind of
But here's the-
parallel.
Okay,
No, but I mean, they have to know too, like, where are we on this thing? And police, this is the second biggest. and
But
fire's big.
that's going to be in Ryan's department
Right.
budget, of course.
yeah.
Police, everything but school,
Everything but. school.
police, fire, everything,
DPW, yeah.
DPW.
So really, what I'm thinking about here is that we, the select board, need to. And I don't see us doing it tonight, but we need to have, I think, more. We need to understand we need to develop the guidance we want to give to Ryan. Right, to what his message is going to be when he sends out this first sort of guidance to the departments about what they submit to him. Right, and we don't.
I think Ryan needs to draft it up to and submit it to us for discussion. I don't think it's I think,
Well, for instance, this question about do we want to just ask for his opinion, his guidance about from what he's seen so far, would he recommend that we put more into the staff salaries, adjusting those
Yeah,
and making
absolutely.
sure, rather than considering requests for additional hours or, for new positions.
I think we need to
Right.
ask Ryan's opinion since he has been meeting with everybody.
Mhm.
He has been doing the study of the departments and how they're operating. He has been thinking about even rearranging their spaces. So I think he is the one that will give us the information and recommendations about what we should be looking at and thinking about, just as he did here, where he says, well, you've got this and this and this. Do you want to do this or do you want to do that? Do you want to do, and my and he might even add a recommendation. You want to do this or that? I kind of recommend that, or whatever. Sorry, Ryan, I know it's a lot
Yeah,
of work,
so,
but the thing is, I think Ryan is the one that needs to take the lead.
yeah, certainly, because you're the one that's also managing the services, the
Right.
people that are providing the services
Right.
for the town. So what do you think about that? How are you?
And it wouldn't just be me, it's the department heads, it's the
Yeah,
finance team,
yeah.
it's Kim. Right, so it's not it's as a collective, the staff, here's the trade-offs. If you accept this, here's what happens. If you don't, here's what happens, is typically the advice I give. And then the town has to decide its level of service. Yeah, I'm comfortable.
But I think what Kate's saying, which I agree with, is that we are looking for your recommendation, not just there's this and there's this, but of the choices from your understanding of how the town operates now and what you think is needed going forward to provide the services that the town needs, you would recommend this approach versus this approach.
Understood.
Okay.
Yeah. Not only that, but Ryan is able to work with all the departments or whichever ones he thinks he needs to work with together, where they can talk cooperatively and come up with a plan amongst them, rather than pitting one department against the other where they don't know and don't care what the other guys need or want. All they know is what they want. I think this is a much better process to have this all be more organic and come from that side of the table. And we certainly are not, qualified to make any and without that information and that data, I don't feel I want to talk about even higher level things because I don't know, I don't have enough information yet.
So, Scott, when is the school gonna have a preliminary budget?
I'll follow up on that. I did talk to Jim last week and they've started the process, but they're on a delayed timeline with the rest of us, so I can get an answer on that, but we can.
That's the piece, the missing piece that.
Well, the region, do you recall?
I don't know.
They should have something by typically mid to late November.
Yeah, their region's pretty.
So I would like to think that Carlisle would at least have maybe it's not approved by the school committee, but they would have a pretty.
Because that's the
Yeah.
important part of what Kate's saying, you
Yeah.
need data. Well, those are two big pieces. of
Yeah.
data.
Hopefully the regional school committee will not take umbrage if our committee members decide to ask some questions again this year.
No, they won't, but you won't change the bill, so.
Well, you never know. They haven't, I mean, when I was on school committee, if, somebody from Carlisle said, we can't afford this now, we would take that under
Yeah,
consideration.
there are, yeah.
But
there's
anyway.
some, But anyway.
I would assume that if we're meeting with, we haven't finalized this, but if we're meeting with people in the first half of January.
Yeah.
You know how much gets done between mid-December and mid-January. That's not a lot. So I would assume the school would need to have its ducks in a row
Prior,
prior.
that'd be good. Okay.
Yeah.
And for your meeting for the meeting on the sixth December?
No,
13th, I think.
13th, yeah.
Are we
just
meeting?
Have one in
Oh,
December.
They were done in February, they were done in February. But there is, let me see, I thought we had another check-in.
If-
Is that done yet?
If there is a opportunity to have that discussion
Want to make sure. I'm
with
ready.
Ryan, once he's collected data, talk to people in early to mid-December, that would be a great time because people will need the materials.
I have
Yeah.
a budget up to placeholder on the 13th, so I'm gonna put things on that.
Okay.
So I guess I'm still just want to make prescriptively, who's the reach out to schools? Is it you or is it Ryan as he's putting together his package?
I mean,
Well,
I just talked to the schools from the standpoint of our budget process. I
Right.
mean, for you, we can talk about that, but I would assume that you would be involved with that. I mean, typically there's been a
They're
relationship.
not used to that, so.
Well, I mean, right.
They'll come to you and I'll come to you and we'll be a team.
yeah.
I think they're putting their budget together and it's
Okay.
it's
I
just
mean,
making sure
Jack,
it's
now,
included
it's not,
in the
right,
information.
it's not a big deal. I'm not trying to make it a big deal. I'm just saying. They're not used to the town administrator asking them about their budget.
Right.
But I think from what I've seen, there's a good relationship
so,
already.
Right, so
So-
I agree. And so what
Yeah.
I'm what we're putting, at least I'm notionally putting down on the 13th of December. By that time, those pieces are together and we have another discussion where we have data, to Kate's point. Right?
Structure.
Well, we have
Little
structure now. We just don't know what the numbers are.
Well,
Yeah, anyway.
but I also want to underscore that, I mean, FinCom's intent is to have the marathon discussions be as substantive as they've always been, but our goal is to maintain transparency, maintain our ability to ask questions. Having this information as an input will be incredibly helpful to that process,
Right,
but we're still committed to doing our process
right,
in the interest of the town and per our responsibilities to the town.
right. But if we know,
Yeah.
again, notionally, if we know in mid-December that we're 200,000 heavy,
It's good. Good
you
to
got a
know.
mission, and you should get from us the priorities and you
And
do your wire brushing, but you know what, what your
And we do
objectives-
have to factor in because we, in our budget letter, we do have to factor in warrants, all that other stuff that's not operating expense. So included in all this, separate category, separate bucket, but what warrants are coming up? What do those look like?
Yeah.
Getting your early thoughts on those would be helpful.
But we're gonna. Did we open to it? No, next
Yeah.
week.
Next
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 week,
meeting. we open.
next meeting, yeah.
So that 13th, it's not just about the operating budget. The more we can get a look at the big picture and
Yeah.
understand your
Yeah.
priorities, I think
Yeah.
it'll really help us.
We'll be close to closing the warrant by
Yeah.
the 13th, so
Right.
you'll be, you should,
No,
We're not.
February,
We're not-
oh, sorry, that's right, I'm sorry.
we're
but,
leaving it open.
Open
To the
it.
day before town meeting.
Yeah.
We're going to even open it, going to open it before like January, so
Right.
it'll be open,
It
at
closes
least
out
most of it'll be in,
February
I think,
28th.
well, I think we have we have a process
yeah.
Yeah,
to work on.
It'll be different this year, but again, I
Yeah.
think our committee is, really happy to have Ryan on board and to work with him and get his insights into,
That's good.
especially the operating budget.
but one thing I think we did all agree is also to not forget about that longer term.
Yep.
Yes,
No, we're not, no, we're
Right.
not.
no,
Okay.
that was one of our
Yeah.
goals,
Yeah,
to be,
Planning. a budget.
yeah, the 5 to 10 year.
Gotta start. somewhere.
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
I think we should move on if that's okay with everybody.
Thanks.
I know it ran longer, but really appreciate you both being here and I'm sorry that we didn't get started sooner, but anyway, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is
Thanks,
helpful.
guys.
All right, we'll be in touch for sure. All right, thanks a lot.
Lightning round.
Um,
Let's go.
So we've got several things on our agenda. But maybe we can get actually back on track in terms of the Greeno barn. You put, we have a bunch of stuff in here, Ryan, that you included in the packet. And also the memo from Sylvia. Do you want to just quickly give us I see, and you've got a memo in here too about the estimates you received.
We could
And
have,
so you want to plan an article for the annual town meeting to budget for the full 150. Do you?
So the
give us a
purpose
quick- Yeah.
this background information is, the board was considering how everybody, I think, is on board with destroying the Greeno barn. It's how quickly. So Sylvia did a fantastic job gathering everything that is necessary to do it correctly. And I agree with her recommendations and assessment that there's a lot of work to do now. But I talked to her about it today, and we think that we can get all that done in time for the town meeting. So really what we're asking is the town meeting timeframe good? Can we include this in the warrant process? And would you like us to get started on the action items as Sylvia, the Board of Health, and our some of our volunteers and our building commissioner have laid out?
those are
Yeah.
3 good questions.
Yeah.
Yes,
And in
yes,
light of
yes.
the early,
Sorry.
do you have a question, Nathan?
He said yes.
Now-
Yeah,
Oh, Yes, yes,
Yes.
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 Yeah, and all the things that Sylvia is describing here, we would want to have that information or that work to be done. What'll allow us to do then is if we put this on the town warrant and it's approved, you'll be able to fairly quickly after that get the project going. Is that right?
Ideally, all these things are attended to. We have a much better idea of the actual scope of work.
Right.
It still fits within the financial parameters that we've outlined, and we start the bid process prior to town meeting so that if it is approved, we can get going before the.
Yeah.
But what Sylvia outlines and what Stansky and Starsky and Hutch, I call them.
Stansky and McNair.
I'm dating myself, right? Is like a pre-scoping, right? In other words, that's information that would be necessary to have to do a good RFP.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's small money, I guess, right? And it's money you think you have in the operating budget, you can.
Yeah, like the 71.
$23 that you can, FY $23 to do this, right?
Yes, the Stamsky and McNary have already begun this work on the wetland work. What I need to do is work on an investigation of the barn to see if there's going to be anything that holds it up or makes it more expensive, which.
Right, and you cited a few of those things that could be significant. Like maybe there's an oil tank. I've never really-
Remediation, yeah.
Yeah. It's unlikely to be asbestos, but there very
Right.
well could be other things, right?
Yeah, and so I guess the reason why I think it's really important that, that we accept Ryan's recommendation here is you don't go to town meeting with a warrant where you don't have all the i's dotted and t's
Right.
crossed.
Right.
Agreed,
Yeah.
right.
But I'm wondering, rather than approve that, I think the way that you're, where is it? That you're making a motion to insert an article in the annual town meeting warrant. So I think, though, you don't need that in order to move ahead with the pieces that are outlined in Sylvia's memo, correct? And the reason I'm raising that is because I'm thinking rather than approve something now that we're going to put on the town warrant, that we'd wait and do that in the
In the
normal
order.
course of our
15th.
planning for the warrant, which would happen, after the first of the year.
But the items she identifies are being done or are planning to be done. They don't require an action by us.
They do not. We're just looking to make sure we're headed in the right direction and we'll go.
Okay,
And-
but you're not saying you need that vote tonight that we're approving putting it on the warrant. We certainly, I think, are all intending that, but I would like to wait.
I would think a strong
do that
sense of the
along with
board,
regular
other,
process.
Yeah.
What, Nathan?
I would think a strong sense of the board, because they don't want to do it if for some reason we're going to say no, right?
Right, exactly. I think you get the strong sense of the board that.
Yeah, the sense of the
this is
board
good.
is, yeah, we
But-
would,
but
we're
the-
supportive.
we see the quotation from Stamsky and McNary. for
Yeah.
their specific professional service. But listed in Sylvia's thing is inspection for asbestos, which I think also requires a special person. And check on pipes and where they go and
Yeah.
dig down and check the foundation. I mean, these are not maybe super complicated, but is your understanding that who's gonna do all that work?
That's the next step. So I will bring that back to the board with a updated time frame. But thankfully Sylvia put this together for me. I asked her to,
Yeah,
and a lot of these things that I wouldn't have even thought of. And now we have a plan of action I think we can execute. So if
Right.
there's more funding or anything, that it'll come back to this board. Otherwise, we're just heading towards town meeting.
okay,
Okay.
good. All right, well, then let's move on to the shared services study, which you've also provided us. Yeah. So this is a motion
Yeah.
about MAPC hiring them to do the shared services. That's the group, obviously, that we had come talk with us. And now they've provided us with a specific scope of work here.
And Brian is on too, if you have any additional questions. about
great.
the scope of work.
I'm here.
Hi,
I'm trying to
Brian.
get my
Thank you.
camera working.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Brian, it's a little hard to hear. So when you, if you would try to, I don't know how to make it louder, but do whatever you can on your end, that would be great.
I
How
thought
about,
we,
how about now? Can you hear me now?
still a little.
It's really pretty faint, but
maybe
Online,
our
online we
technician at
can
this
turn.
end.
okay. We can't do anything on our end, but we'll, Brian, did you want to make any brief comment about this before we open it up for discussion?
I'm gonna try and how about now? Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, it's a little better.
Okay. Yeah, so you've seen this scope of work, hopefully. I'm sorry, I'm using the cameras here, but I'm using my laptop camera because I can't seem to get my other one working.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, we've gone back and forth with Ryan on this, and I think we presented a different scope of work that was a little bit more, like a larger, and more in-depth project. It looks like you're looking for right now a broader service sharing study that kind of, like examines the types of service sharing arrangements in the region. I think that this scope of work we put forward is a great way to start, and what also it does is it allows you to kind of develop the conversation on individual topic areas as we go about the work. So, I'm sure you're familiar with the different types of studies where, you give us a bunch of information, we go off into our cave and do a bunch of analysis and everything, and then we give you a lengthy report. This one, is a model that we've kind of, it more mirrors like coming to meetings and talking about different topic areas, asking, like, giving a presentation and give you like an actual report that you have, but it really now allows for the conversation to kind of evolve, and anything that that's not in there, we can also go back and look at, and we can work with you to kind of identify the areas that you might be interested in, and then there's the potential for, after this summary and overview of the regional sharing opportunities, to then look at Carlisle specifically, in terms of what opportunities you have, and the more in-depth analysis of those functions. And one more thing I wanted to point out too is that, as important as the service sharing arrangements that are existing in the area, we wanted to also highlight some of and look into the types of regional groups that exist. Different professional organizations or regional like working groups, or just ways in which to talk about your services and the challenges that you have with your services with others, to sort of build relationships and to develop a little bit of trust. Because we often find that a lot of these service sharing agreements that we've been involved with happen somewhat organically from a shared problem, but then take time with other, with using like a working group or a monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly meeting to kind of just discuss the different challenges you're having in those areas. A lot of times the solutions and the talk about regionalization can come to, or shared services can come together a lot more organically and work a lot more effectively. So I mean, yeah, the scope of work that we presented kind of speaks to what the research we want to do and the information we want to present to you in any which way you're comfortable, like in a cadence that you're comfortable with, whether that be at your biweekly select board meetings or at your or monthly, and that'll help you kind of understand. Like we'll provide some background, some research for individual functions that would then you could take and try to figure out how this works for Carlisle. And I'm happy to answer any
Comments
questions.
or questions?
Just trying to structure the board's request and the master plan's request to study regionalization. So this is what I would say a three-phase approach. So this would be identifying things that towns like Carlisle's typically view. And then based on that list, what do we want to know more information about? And then after that analysis, let's target these specific things for regionalization. So this is just a good way to frame your conversation moving forward, because it can be hard to nail down.
Yeah, and this scope of work covers that first phase.
Yeah, I think it's great. Thank you.
Yeah, and but particularly nice that we can then apply for a grant to fund it.
Yeah, I provided a link in that scope of work to our technical assistance program. That program, it typically works on a calendar year cycle. So, honestly, we take the scope of work. If you could write a cover letter and sign it, we submit that to our technical assistance program. We traditionally have a little bit of funding available, in reserve throughout the calendar year. But depending on the calendar year and the projects that do arise, I'm not exactly 100% certain how the team feels right now for new applications, but we take that cover letter, we bring it to our TA evaluation team, and then they come back with just a plan for that funding too. So the next steps on that would just be to take that scope of work, write a letter about why you are interested in the study and what you feel that this study would bring to Carlisle in terms of your long-term and short-term decision making, and then we submit that and go through our internal process to evaluate and then allocate funding. So
Yeah, when we write that letter, I would say it's not only the benefit to Carlisle, but I would actually mention the benefit to Carlisle and to the Magic region, which we are embedded part
Yeah.
of, right?
Yeah.
yeah, this is something that I've talked to the sub-regional coordinator for Magic too, and they're aware. But yeah, we do feel like that these types of, the existing groups that it'll be interesting where the study goes and how you feel which functions you're on your higher priority list, and see how the other Magic communities feel and start to develop like a sort of knowledge sharing and thought process around that. I'm actually a sub-regional coordinator for SWAP, so the Southwest Advisory Planning Committee. Magic is a much better acronym. I'm kind of jealous just because of the acronym itself.
Yeah.
But one thing that's actually interesting too is I had a conversation with my supervisor, Mark, who's on the last call, about you think about shared services and regional services, you think of how they're traditionally contiguous, and there's certain services that warrant, that would need to be contiguous in order to really effectively share those. But we've started to look at other types of shared services that don't necessarily need to be contiguous. For example, I'm a part of a IT collaborative where we share a lot of purchasing and have one community that really leads the subject matter expert on terms of IT, and they help out a lot of other communities. But for those types of shared services or arrangements, they don't necessarily need to be contiguous unless you are also sharing infrastructure,
Right. Yeah.
servers and things.
Yeah.
Well, I know I mentioned sharing services, I think it was the IT services, and at one of our Magic meetings, and Maynard said, they would call us. Or maybe, I think, pretty sure it was,
Don't call us, we'll call you.
no, they were interested.
Yeah.
I know Greg. So
And I think I mentioned it to you before
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
Yeah,
Brian?
I'm excited about, in terms of IT, I feel like I could talk about that subject in terms of our regional collaborative we've had in the North Shore for a while. So I won't, we'll hold that off until that time, but there is federal funding coming down to that, and the state's going to coordinate, but they want to kind of model more IT collaboratives similar to like what we have on the North Shore. Which I think is great because it's been fantastic for our communities. But we're interested to look at all functions and kind of find information that you'll find useful, help develop a discussion, and then identify those areas that we want to take a deeper look into and sort of build a plan to explore those further.
Brian, I have a quick question for you. So I maybe I didn't hear it or maybe it's not covered specifically, but how is it, just briefly, how is it you go about assessing the services that we have right now in Carlisle? Are you doing that primarily through the town administrator, or do you see as part of this study that you're actually talking to different department heads? How do you gather that information about what we offer?
Well, so specifically for the scope of work that we put forward is the first phase, which doesn't include going to, identifying Carlisle's current service offerings. In the later phases of what we picture this study looking like.
I'm sorry,
I mean,
Brian, so that first phase you're saying, how do you identify the services that we currently offer?
Well, so that's a developing conversation. Typically for these types of studies, we put together like a small working group, and the working group really can be, it's at your discretion. So if you wanted, and we're very flexible with this process too, because obviously,
okay, so that's something we would work out with you, obviously with Ryan.
I mean, that's
okay.
It's at your discretion. So if you want us to work primarily through the town administrator's office, and then he could also point us to certain staff that that would have this information. That works pretty well. But we have had studies like this, like in Sharon, we've worked exclusively through the governance committee to kind of help them research their charge. So we've kind of done it both ways. What we want to make sure that we're doing too is that we're not just we're actually getting the information and involving that discussion, and not just going off and then writing a 70-page report coming back to you. So I do think that this type of conversation is one that it evolves over time as more information, as we are able to look into certain things and have discussions with multiple points of view. That helps guide the next process where we
and then I just want to be sure we're understanding what the next step for us is to draft a letter or write a letter that's going to go with this scope of work that is submitted to MAPC. And is that something I couldn't quite hear the scheduling? Is that something we can submit soon, and you think it will fit into a cycle of funding fairly soon, or not?
So our technical assistance program runs on a calendar year cycle. We do reserve some
calendar
funds
year,
so we accept applications on a rolling basis. So
rolling application process. Okay.
It's a rolling application process, but we get the large bulk of our money, on and start to allocate that money on January 1st. So I would expect that if there's a little bit of funding left, we might be able to get a small amount to start the work. But I would expect that like the full application would then the full funding for the project would have
to wait until the new year, the new calendar year.
That's typically how it works. I hope that works out with how you envision this type, like the timeline that you have in mind.
Okay, and then the 3 months then you're describing, you might have some funds you're saying to apply to it this calendar year, so you could maybe get started, but we should be thinking in terms of a timeline for the return of the information, the deliverables, probably sometime in March.
Yeah, that sounds about.
Okay. That's just helpful to us to understand when we're going to know something. All right.
But do we need that for this first little 7,500?
Yeah. So I would put the application in for that first phase, that first 7,500. Now it's not gonna, in worst case scenario, we don't have any technical assistance funding available for the rest of this calendar year.
Yeah.
But then, starting January 1, it gets
You
reviewed.
wouldn't start this thing.
So we might not be able to start till January, depending on whether there's any
March.
money left. Pardon?
Mhm.
Maybe even March by the time they vet it, right?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, that's why it's important to get it in, because we take it on a rolling basis. They obviously evaluate applications as they come in. And so even if the funding, they can do the evaluation and kind of see how that fits what what the TA's priorities are. And then understand that the funding would be coming at a later date.
Yeah,
So
and even
it's
at
good to
the
get it in
begin-
front of them as soon as possible. So that way, they can have comments and oftentimes too, the TA team will want to have some feedback or suggestions if they feel like they identify anything that they think might enhance the study, or and we've often had conversations with them where it's like a give and take, where they feel like they want to make this piece more robust, and then they think that they can give us more funding for a certain area, or make sure that, like, MAPC does retain a set of core values, and so they want to make sure that when we put together a study that we keep those front of mind. And so there's often a little bit of a give and take in terms of that process, but the cover letter and the impact you
Okay.
think that this study
Yep,
will have.
I think we got it, Brian.
Yeah,
That's
and-
great.
I just want you to not necessarily expect to get it fully funded, because they may also might want us to,
Kick in something.
I know on the HPP, they funded half of it, basically.
But
Yeah.
I mean, we're kind of talking small dollars.
Yeah, we are.
Sure,
And I mean, so that
do it, and
I
because I
wouldn't-
saw in there reference to larger grants, 25 to 60 or something, was referenced in his website.
yeah, but, and
So you save
because it is small money, and because this is only the first phase of a 3-phase thing, I think there'll be other times where we can also, be
What are you saying?
applying for grants for.
Well, I mean,
the
the same
second-
wait for the grant,
Steps.
the same wait for the grant.
I'm saying, I don't think we should
All right, so that's what
necessarily
I'm saying, like, why not
wait,
just come
what,
forward?
for $7,500. I don't think it's worth waiting.
$500.
Well,
for a
what I'm
grant.
hearing Brian say is we get it in now, they do the review process, they may come back to us with some changes or whatever, but that we would be approved. The question is whether there's any money left over in this year's budget, or whether we'd have to wait to actually get the funds as of the beginning of
Right, so
January.
let's say they say you gotta wait, but is it January or March? I still am not.
So we encourage, once the calendar, so January, we encourage that all of our like the conversations that we've had with groups to get their applications in, by mid-January. So that way they can start the process. They sometimes do it in tranches too, depending on how many applications we get. Well, there might the first come, first serve when they evaluate, and then make sure that I've had projects that have had TA from the fiscal year, from the calendar year, that we get, we expect to have, early January, but we've also had, other ones where you start that process of creating an application, it takes a little while to get it in, and then it doesn't get allocated until March. So the timing of it's not always perfect in terms of like consistency of and being able to predict, but it's always the sooner the better
Okay,
Let's just, we're gonna
let's
go
go
for
ahead
it.
and pursue it, and we can find out from
Would you
the
like a motion, Bernie?
grant people.
Yes.
Yeah, please. Thank you,
Great.
Nathan.
I move that the select board authorize the town administrator to submit a technical assistance grant application to engage the services of the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, MAPC, to conduct a shared services feasibility study for the town of Carlisle as described in the scope of work with a total cost of $7,500.
Second,
Excellent. Any discussion? All right, roll call vote, please. Arnold, I.
Brown eye.
Model I.
read I.
Snell, I.
Excellent. Okay. Let us move into then the town administrator's report.
Thanks,
Thank
Brian.
Thank
Don't
you,
forget us-
Brian.
Oh,
Don't fail
yes,
us with the
yes.
grant, get the grant.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Brian.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody.
Right.
Okay. What happened to Collins? We decided not to pursue them? Because I thought we were going to look at one other thing. I
So
mean,
for-
I think I like MAPC. I've worked with them, but I've
For
just.
this phase, I was under the assumption that we wanted to use them for this. If Collins is a better fit for IT or one of those focuses, then,
Okay, that's fine. I was just,
all right, I know you've read this, so I can move through some of this
yes.
more quickly. As part of the transition, really did a deep dive into finances, spent a long time with financial forecast, building that model. And Kim and Kelly have been immensely helpful in helping assemble that data. It's a lot of work, but we feel like it's going to pay off. And once it's done, it's done. And just when I think I know something, I run into someone like Jack Trost, who explains like the town of Carlisle, master planning and all that. So he gave me a good course on just understanding what's coming, and we came up with a good plan. Just an impressive guy. I'm sure you guys already know that, but I think we'll work well together on your implementation strategy and bring that back to you.
And let me just put a note in here for the general public. So the discussion we had 2 select board meetings ago, I believe it was, about implementing the master plan, where we discussed having a small group under Ryan's direction go through the existing master plan recommendations. That is now what Ryan is describing as his meeting with Jack and what he and Jack are going to develop. And then the plan is still to have that then get sent out to boards and committees for feedback. Correct? Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, quick update on the HR meeting with the planning board and the town planner candidate on Thursday. We're very excited. We have a good candidate, and that's a key position for the town. So just a lot riding on that meeting, but we're confident it's going to go well. Aubrey's going to start. This says November 8th, but we talked, it's going to be the 9th, and that's my problem because I want to make sure I'm fully available for her orientation day. So she's going to start on the 9th. And then the assistant assessor, Reagan Flood, is going to begin on November 21st, which is a big win for the assessing department.
Yeah.
Then we talked at length about the chief of police process, so I can skip over that. The land use team, we can continue to meet. We had a productive discussion that allowed each department to bring projects forward that I think others will need to know about, and that's going to be helpful. In particular, Janine Bloom from the Historical Commission was there, so adding layers to the land use team so that we can do some of the master plan work on making sure that it's collaborative in the land use side of the house. It already is, but this gives some formality to it. And speaking of that, we're going to have a all chair committee meeting on November 4th at the Brick Building, just over there, to talk about some of this coordination, and then of course the master plan. And then each group is going to give a little update on what they're doing. So that mimics our monthly department staff land use meeting. Our finance team, you saw a lot of the work tonight presented came from the finance team and their work. We're working on policies to try and force these conversations about reserve levels, forecasting, and the other things that were discussed in the memorandum. And then our free cash total is final and certified at 4.271 million, which is a healthy number and gives the town a great deal of flexibility and a nice reserve. The meatier part of this report is I'm looking for the board's support on 2 specific ARPA requests. I've done a little research on this and I know I've been hinting at it. So here is the 2 requests. First, we'd like to reorganize town hall a little bit. So this isn't like tear down the building, it's reorganized space, little space utilization work. I spoke to town staff, boards, and been communicating this for the better part of a month. The goal is to make an 80% solution for everybody. It's not going to make everybody fully happy, but the goal is to make sure that each person has a space, each employee, that there's collaborative positioning, meaning teams are working together and have good access to each other. And then the residents, when they come in, have a good flow. So those 3 things should make the staff more efficient, should make it a better experience for the residents when they come in, and help with things like retention and making sure employees own their space. In conjunction with that, the second request will be for for records, for dealing with the records problem that everybody knows exists at town hall. So you can tell I like my phased approaches. So this would be a three-phased approach. The first would be to have a professional come in and audit and inventory the problem so that we understand it. The second would be a scrubbing of the records. So this is looking for duplicates, looking for places to make that low-hanging fruit, the immediate reduction of the records. And then the third phase would be to identify areas that we can digitize and make publicly available. So this is not a 1 month process. This is probably a 1 to 2 year process. So you'll hear this a lot, but to get it started, I would like to do that immediate inventory and audit, and then talk about how we can address by department the records issue. So in conjunction, these two initiatives would place employees in their space and have them own their particular space to include their records. And then anything that's not owned by the department specifically or as a board or committee would be addressed, organized, and inventoried so that we understand the scope, and then we can attack it either with some type of space organization or digitization. So it's a lot, but we are committed to it. To be candid, Peggy was one of the few people that was really focused on this and has done a tremendous amount of work in the last couple of years to try and attack this problem. And I think she deserves more of us looking at it and focusing on it, especially me. So
Can I interrupt you? Kate, did we looked at record retention guidelines?
I did at one point. God, I wonder where I did with them.
Because it was
Yes.
kind of all over the place. I mean, I
well-
was surprised it was fairly light, actually. You didn't have most records. There was no requirement. We could find those statutory requirements.
There's statutory requirements that, and the only
Pretty-
thing that you really have to keep are the payroll stubs.
But
Which
you're
don't have
probably
to-
aware
they
this,
could-
aren't
But
you, Ryan?
Brian knows
Yeah.
what needs to be kept.
Yeah,
And some things do need to be kept for a certain amount of time, like ballots have a certain, shelf life, so to speak. And at one point, we did get King to come in and they did inventory what was in the safe.
Yeah.
And they labeled everything but I'm not sure that that has been kept up because there's some boxes that are probably now need to be removed and shredded and to make room
So
for new
as you're
boxes.
Going through the inventory in your mind, I mean, you're also making a judgment on most of the records I think you'll find are beyond their statutory requirement for retention. So it would be more of a conversation with the professional in the office about what he or she feels are they want to keep, right?
correct.
Okay.
And there's two problems with it. One is a lot of people are good at the records that they've had since they've been there and forward, but the backlog is so daunting and
Well, if
not
they haven't
efficient.
needed it in the X years they've been,
But going through it takes time and it's a lot, just to
Right.
scrub a box. So I haven't created paper since I've been here and I still have 3 filing cabinets that I have to go through and it's a lot to commit to going through
Yeah.
the box and scrubbing it. So
Right.
this would help us identify that work.
And that's mostly people doing it that are on staff, right? That's a self-generated, thing, right?
So this would bring someone in to do that scrubbing and say, hey, you've got
Mhm.
3 of these, you can get rid of 2 of them. And now you have 1 you can address and then we can look at it, identifying that as.
Right, but there may be some of that, but I just think there's gonna be old records that. It's more of a judgment call, like, okay, you've got 10 years worth of, you know. Planning board requests, right? You only have to keep the last 3 years, like. I mean, maybe the town planner wants to know, but nobody's looked at the 5 years ago or 10 years ago records since anybody can remember. Somebody's got to make that call. Well, okay, once they go away, right? Looking through them, you might find a duplicate, but most of you are just gonna say, do you need this application for a building permit from 10 years ago? If there's no statutory requirement,
So
then it's a question of whether.
the problem is people don't store things that way. So
Yeah.
file will have a HR document that you need to keep forever, some handwritten
Okay,
notes,
so you're
and then like
spending-
someone's lunch. Right? So you gotta like sift through each thing and make sure that it's down to what you've got. And
Okay.
analyzing each document is what takes time.
And that's somebody, a third party's gonna handle
Yeah.
it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not only that, but we've discovered we have multiple copies and
Well,
multiple.
the multiple
offices.
copies, I get it. That makes a lot of sense, but I just think the more intractable problem is. A third party can say you have 2 of these. Okay, great. But a third party can't say, do you want the 10 years ago application or do we not have to take? Again, assuming no statutory requirement. I think the statutory is pretty light.
Yeah, the third
Yeah.
party though does know the statutory requiremements. And
We're
so
not
what
gonna
they
throw
can
away
do
stuff we
is
should.
they can pile this up and say, you have all of
this
these.
could go.
this
It's
could
not
go,
required
and then-
by statute.
yes.
Yeah,
And is this a FY 24 funding?
This would,
Well, I saw the 100,000 figure, but this is just phase one of it, right?
so I think that gets us through most of the scrubbing that you're talking about.
Is that, when is the spend of that?
so
Oh,
this
that
is
would be
phase
ARPA
1 and
funds.
2.
That's
Yeah,
ARPA.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it
Yeah.
would be a bridge of probably FY 23.
I got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
and one of the principles of ARPA money was that it was for one time, not for operating expense, one-time initiatives and.
Okay.
yeah. Just a but somewhat tangential, but are we were not happy with the previous, the current company we've been using. I can't remember, was Iron Mountain? Yeah, so have we ended that contract, or are we in the process of doing that so we can hire somebody? Because we found somebody that we liked, I thought, Peggy liked, yeah.
So quickly, the amount of work Peggy put into that, so she identified and got them to answer, went there with our custodian Alan, got the records, came back, put them in the office. They're musty and bad. Turns out they were all on microfiche. So she obtained a microfiche reader from the library, went through and made sure that the records were good, stored them in the storage place, then got another evaluator to come in and say, hey, you may or may not need these. And then we had to duplicate the film. So she did all this in like 2 weeks. That's just
Yeah.
23 boxes. We have
You have 23 boxes of microfilms?
Yes.
records with microfilm, and
Oh, okay.
you have to go through the reels of microfilm to see that the
Yeah.
records match. So
So is
records
that
are a
what this-
problem everywhere.
Yeah, is that what this firm would do instead of
Yes.
Peggy spending her time on that?
Correct. So they
Yes.
immediately said, if you have microfilm, as long as you have 2 versions, you can keep one in the cloud and you keep the film and you're good. You can get rid of the records. And then they do that service. So
Okay.
Okay,
that's what we need, is someone to come in and help.
And-
okay,
You're gonna use King for that, I take it, or are
Use
you gonna go for
RFP, they're the
RFP?
ones we're used to.
Okay,
okay.
They're usually pretty competitive.
right.
All right, so you would like us tonight, though, to make a motion to support your application to ARPA for these 2 proposals.
Yes, and just to
Correct.
be clear, the schematic that's in your packet is a draft. So
Of the office
planning will
rearrangement.
go here. and
Yeah.
Planning will decide what that looks like. I won't.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah,
It's just like a one, there's only like a half of the second floor in the town, right?
correct, it's
Yeah.
all consolidating the finance team, the executive team, and the land.
I do,
That was an accident.
oh,
okay.
I did have one question about the schematic though, where, in
Well,
area,
hold on one
okay.
sec. Can we, do you need to have that answer before we can decide on the 2 ARPA
no,
proposal?
I
Okay,
guess
so why don't we go ahead and deal with that? I don't think we need, it'll come back to us for our support, right, from our.
exactly,
So,
I'd be happy to carry the message to the ARPA committee
Yeah,
that.
that we support
that this is
these 2
supported, and I can tell
applications.
you, without even going to the ARPA committee, the ARPA committee will in turn support it, because we supported Peggy's first thing to her little thing,
Yes.
because I had gone in and said, Peggy, ask us for money, because
Yeah,
I don't want you doing this all by yourself. So
Okay,
she did, and we
so,
did, and you did.
that, is everybody comfortable with that? The sense of the board is, yes, we support these 2 requests being submitted to ARPA. Everybody good with that?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Okay,
then
but I
your
do have a question about
schematic.
the schematic,
Yeah,
where it seems to indicate a wall put in Kelly's office.
Correct.
I want you to be very careful about that, about when especially, okay, the other offices are open offices, but when you partition places, the HVAC is usually affected. And so, do you know where the air vents are in there?
So
And
it's a cubicle wall.
oh, that's
it's
a,
a half wall.
oh, why does it have a door on it then?
Because one of the concerns for the treasurer is to have a double lock on the safe. So the safe will be behind a lock, which will be behind a lock. So that's the only way to get around not giving the treasurer a whole room in a building that only has one room, mine. And she would gladly have mine, but she didn't want it, so.
Yeah, okay, so I'm just wondering if then why you didn't put it on the other side where you have a bigger room? Because it's a very small area there. But anyway, okay,
Because we have to condense departments and we can put a whole department in there instead of just Kim.
I understand, but, okay,
Maybe
All right.
this is something
I'll
where
talk
you
to you
could just
offline.
follow up. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And this will be where it gets held up is there's no solution where everybody wins because of the way the town hall is configured. So we had to come up with a solution that mostly works. So it doesn't all work. This is just kind of the best case scenario.
Okay. Travis,
No, I
Oh.
was just giving a thumbs up because I think we should rely on our town manager or town administrator, sorry. It
Right.
was-
Yeah.
and Nathan, did I see earlier you had a comment you wanted to make? Or a question? No,
Nope.
you're good.
Nope.
Okay,
Yep, I'm good.
great. So let's continue on with, is there, forgot, yeah, there are a couple other things in your report. Is that right?
Yep, just
Oh, yeah.
some
The
easier but
cane.
and quick but nice things. So Kay Woodward, who I
Yeah,
believe you all
just
know,
passed.
Carlisle's oldest resident, passed in October. I read her obituary and found her to be, I didn't get to meet her, but just a remarkable person. And obviously would like to wish her family and friends deepest condolences. But she was holder of the Boston Post cane, which is an honor that she held for a long time, which is good. And it is now going to be passed to Santo Pilara, who's a 98-year-old resident who many of you know. Is very interested in jazz as an outgoing personality and was a Navy veteran in World War II. So the board is actually the one who bestows this, and we thought, bring a 98-year-old in here at 10 o'clock would be very nice. So we'd like to give that and maybe have the board send a representative to give this at the next veterans breakfast. We think it's a nicer way to do it. And his name's already on the plaque in town hall, so
Yeah.
just a nice thing. So
Great.
if one of you wants to come or more than one, then that'd be great.
Yeah, let us know when that's
Yeah,
scheduled.
I'd
I
be
think
happy-
that's a great
yeah.
idea to do it at the Veterans
I was the one that
Breakfast.
gave Kay hers, but we
Yes,
actually went to her house. She got it a couple of times. I think, I don't know why. But I think maybe somebody outclassed her at one point and then she had, anyway, but I do remember
Okay.
presenting it and going, or maybe it was presenting something at her house.
anyway, this is a nice
Yeah,
thing to remind us that we have here in our town. And,
Yes.
a really, I think, meaningful tradition.
all these clock.
Okay,
Clock pictures were not supposed to be in there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's my
all
fault.
right.
That is my
Um,
fault. I was enthralled by the pictures and want to go visit the clock and it got in a folder and
Okay.
All
it
right.
happens. So the assistant town clerk Gretchen is going to be working for the library. In order to comply with the law, I need the board to approve the disclosure that is in your packet under general law 268A20B. So this says that she doesn't have any financial interest in either and just allows her to be designated as an employee of both.
So is that a motion that we need to
Yes.
have?
And it's
And
in
then
Okay.
here.
sign it tomorrow.
Oh, you've got the motion. in there.
It was
Okay.
in there somewhere. Hang on, I'm looking for it.
Is it? Okay.
Yes, I move that the board acknowledges receipt of Gretchen's disclosure under general law, chapter 268 LA, section 20B, and approve her exemption under the same law. Her exemption is valid given her service with the library are outside of her normal working hours with the clerk, that the services are not part of her regular duties, and that she will not work more than 500 hours per calendar year with the library.
We have a second.
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 Excellent. Any discussion? Roll call vote then, please. Arnold, I.
And I,
Oh, no,
Reed, I.
Snell, I.
Excellent. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, a couple quick recognitions.
Mhm.
Gretchen led an initiative with Peggy overseeing it and our superintendent Jim Shea having some students come and learn about during their win block, learn about the elections process. They asked some really good and funny questions. You can imagine, given the news, some of the questions they had about election security and fraud and all that stuff,
Mhm.
but also got a great civics lesson. Gretchen's really smart with that stuff. She's really good with kids and it was fun to see her get to engage that way. And I got a nice note from one of the students. So,
What grade and were they all grades?
oh boy, I don't remember, 6.
Middle school.
And it was just a nice break in the day for everybody. So our building commissioner, John, informed me this week that Vinnie Chant will end his work with the town at the end of the year at the age of 85. And after 23 years of service here, he deserves the retirement, I think. I think you would agree. I didn't work long with Vinnie, but everybody respected him, and I know it's going to be tough to replace him. So John does have a plan in place that I'll bring to you at your next meeting. But first, we wanted to just acknowledge Vinnie's service and let you know that he's re-retiring. I don't know what that's called.
Re-retire.
And then Honest and Jen put together our first staff luncheon. So this is going to be a monthly themed get together with the staff. You are all welcome to come occasionally. We'll be doing this mid-month just to bring the staff together to talk about things other than municipal government. So thank you to Jen and Anish for putting that together and doing a great job. And that is my report.
Okay. And then I see we've got some dates for the future
we-
select board meetings and when you are going to be doing professional development. Ryan, so it looks like October 27th and 28th, you'll be out of the office, right?
Yes, I'll be at
Okay.
a small town administrators.
29.
So that's actually that's
Thursday.
tomorrow.
Oh,
No,
it says
Thursday and Friday of this
Thursday
week.
and-
Okay,
but
All
those
right.
dates must be wrong then.
yes. Well, one's the
Well-
20, it should be 27th, 28th.
Or
Whatever.
the
that's
28th
okay.
and the
It's
29th.
not
one
a
or the
big
other.
deal.
Okay.
Let's take a look at the draft agenda.
Okay,
It
it doesn't go to December, but can we just, is everybody able to do that December 13th meeting? I just would like to make sure that.
You have a conflict?
No, well, okay, so in December, we have a meeting set for. When is it? Come on, calendar, come
It's
back up.
December 13th. I
December
believe.
13th.
Yeah,
However, we need to have a joint meeting with the planning board. And the planning board meets on
the Monday before. I
the
believe.
Monday before, on the 12th. So
But Madeline had said it would be fine to have
If you
the,
have it on the
ask them to
13th.
come, to the select
that's
board.
true, she did say that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So I
we,
think if
I
if
just
that
wanna make
looked
sure that-
reasonable, David, on our agenda, that right, we'd have the planning board.
I have planning board and I have CAT to review the housing production plan.
that's correct.
Yeah,
And we hope to have, if you like the town planner, when would that person join?
That's the planning board's appointment, so they would make that.
Soon, in time for the December 13th, we'd hope.
I would hope. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And then we also talked to the FinCom about have a budget
Right.
check-in. And the
Okay.
reason it's just a single meeting in December, we're meeting after we avoided Thanksgiving, a bunch of things sort of waterfalled. So we've got a 3-week break as of tonight. So we're meeting November, excuse me, which and then, of course, the next week is Thanksgiving week. So then we're 2 weeks ahead is the end of that little period. And then really, there's no other meeting we can, I mean, if we had like the beginning and the late December, we could squeeze 2 meetings, but it just didn't work that way. So
yeah.
I think it's a.
And we all
And
we
that's
all
3
looked at
meetings
that
in
calendar
January.
before and everybody said that was
Yeah, that
fine,
was
except for
fine.
one, I think for Nathan, you were an iffy.
I
maybe-
am not able to make the 29th of November.
Okay, the
29th.
29th, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Let's take a look at this agenda though for
Yes.
the 15th of November. So we open the town warrant. The Brian Soares is invited to come, and this is part of our ongoing, inviting departments to come in and just
Right.
share with us their current plans and then goals. And so Travis, as the liaison, has been working on having Brian attend. I don't know, have you heard anything back yet, or?
I didn't hear back by email, but I'm sure.
Okay.
I will follow up again.
And then we have the tax classification hearing. The Environmental Sustainability Committee, I believe, is going to be ready with their work plan. And then we also, when we met with the MFC,
Mhm.
several weeks ago, one of the things they were going to do is redo their charter and then and also take a closer look at the master plan and come back and discuss both those two topics. And then the rest of this is sort of routine things.
So I had, in my calendar, I had ESC for the 29th, but you've talked to them about the 15th. I'm fine with the 15th.
You had the 29th. Well, let me check back then on that
Check back
one.
with them.
Yeah. Okay. Any other items? Do we need any more discussion about the budget?
Not at that one.
Not at this one, correct? Okay. Any other member of the,
Well, there are two things that we've added now, though. We've added police chief transition. We're going to review the bid package.
right,
And we potentially will meet or somehow discuss these two police new hires. So we might need to make,
Oh, yeah.
so we might want to make room when we go back to this.
So-
So,
right.
so we may, I mean, that's something you and I and Ryan do usually like later in the week, but you know, it's possible. The ESC could go like another, like 2 weeks
To the
later.
29th, yeah. Right.
And then I
And
have,
where were we about, sorry, David, the police search, the committee that we might want to hire
then if we.
for the police search, yeah,
We would review the big packages at the next meeting, so that itself will take a little bit of time.
yeah,
If we
So
like
that's
more
this
than
committee.
one, we may
right,
want them to come in.
the following meeting, yeah,
The
okay,
following meeting doesn't have much in it. It has public safety facility and the Stu Roberts report
right.
and ESC if we have, that's all I've got.
Yeah, we did just get the town governance committee
we-
has completed their report and submitted it.
Yeah.
So, and they are interested in
could
coming to
do that.
talk to us. So if we
Okay,
wanted to
could-
do that in December,
We could do.
or,
I mean, this is something we do off cycle. So let's
Okay.
just talk about the next one. I guess, I think the question. The police, it's hard to judge. I mean, the police thing could be very quick if the packages are self-explanatory. But we're not gonna in any case have an interview next time, so
no,
I don't think it'll be a long thing. So I think we're okay with what you have.
yeah,
It's always better to get things done because there's always new things that come up. So
yeah, what
are
we,
you on ESC? I can't remember.
yeah,
All right,
Sure.
so you
As
can
the
figure out if
liaison,
that's
yes.
appropriate.
yes.
Okay, so I'll put it in.
Okay, and then we have minutes to look at here. Oh, I'm sorry, there's an appointment here to the Public Safety Facilities Task
Oh,
Force.
that was interesting.
And Tom Bellata, who is the chair of the Transfer Station Action Committee, in his letter said, I think in his letter, but he certainly said to me personally that he's going to continue as the chair of the Public Safety, Transfer Station Action Committee. But is very interested in serving on this committee now as well. So,
So I move to appoint Tom Belota of 77 Nathan Lane to serve on the Public Safety Facilities Task Force for an indefinite term.
may I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, let's have a roll call vote, please. Arnold, I.
Brown eye.
Model I.
Reed, I.
Snell, I.
Thank you. And then approval of the minutes.
Before we jump to that, I'm sorry,
Yes.
I had one other question for Ryan that I noted, but I forgot to ask. So in your report, you do mention an EDCO payment. I think it was in the report.
Yeah,
An EDCO payment for 35,000 and,
that's from the school.
Yeah, I can
Right.
tell you more about
Yeah.
that if you
but I
want.
mean,
Oh,
well, maybe you can tell me then. I mean, just as I recall, because they shut down, there's sort of unknown future cost. Do we now know like what our total liability will be for that unwinding?
well, the one thing that Kelly told me about this was that that money's not coming out of the operating budget. It's coming out of the EDCO income that the town had received.
Oh,
And so it's, yeah, so that's what I know beyond what Jim has described here.
well, it's just, is it a Jim O'Shea thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he would know if is it, they still aboard or they disband?
They're disbanding.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's just, I mean, it's not.
Been disbanding for the last 2 years.
They unwound and there's some unknown
Yes,
tail.
yeah.
Right,
Probably be good to maybe give it out to Ryan, just
yeah.
to know about it. So education collaborative and it fell apart and.
And the other thing of note, just on the warrants is that the buyout of the, retired employee for the police department that we were just discussing earlier.
Oh, okay.
So it's a $30,000 payout and then and the termination date was 9/14.
And where does that money come from? Is that an operating expense?
Yeah,
Mhm.
that is.
Okay.
Yep,
Add it to the pile.
yep.
Yep.
All right, sorry, go ahead with the minutes.
Okay,
Okay.
that's it. And then, yeah, so let's take a look at the minutes.
So on the minutes, and I sent this to Jen and she has fixed it. She had us in the wrong spot. She had us at the town hall when we were here.
Oh,
Otherwise, the
minutes
minutes,
of October 11, yeah. okay.
minutes were fine. I mean, I didn't have any other substantive thing.
I had I guess, more substantive thing, but I didn't, I forgot to get it to, Jen or the town
Okay.
administrator.
Let us know what.
Specifically on the municipal facilities committee, section, it lists all the bullet points of what, projects and repairs. But that was really only part of our whole discussion. Our real discussion was like, what are some of the big issues going forward? And that's why they're gonna come back. And I don't think any of that was mentioned. And so I thought.
In the minutes,
in the
yeah.
minutes, I
Oh,
thought it
yeah.
would be
Right.
appropriate to do that, to mention that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yep, I
Um,
agree.
So do we want these to come back to us? Or?
I think we
Travis,
should,
will
yeah,
you,
there should be some,
Maybe draft a sentence or two. Well, just so that,
Make me do something.
Well-
well-
Yes, I can.
well,
Yeah.
because, I mean,
I'll send that to Ryan.
Jen can
or to
look
Jen.
back at it, but you mean, it might
or
be better.
or Jerry
I was-
could.
I was
if,
in I was in the room, so I can
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, okay.
I have, so as long as we're recalling the minutes, I have one other nit, which is, I'm looking for it now, but we make mention in the body of the minutes for both proclamations, the mosquito as well as the playground
Committee,
committee,
yeah,
but somewhere here is in terms of attachments. The links to attachments, she's only linked the mosquito proclamation.
okay,
So
rather
both-
than
both
not the
should be
playground
linked.
committee. Okay,
I forget now, I can't find it.
yeah. Ryan, is that something you can follow up on?
I'm writing it right now.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
All right, good.
Okay,
Hey, good
so
catch.
we'll hold off on these and we'll take a look at them at the next meeting.
Right.
Okay,
That was. easy.
so I know we're over time. Is there anyone that has a burning liaison report they would like to make?
I do, but not a burning liaison report, but I have something. I am going to that all chairs meeting.
Hmm,
I think I am the only.
No, I'm
I'm
going
You're
to.
go-
Oh, you are going? I thought you weren't going.
No, I am going.
You are.
November
I'm
4th.
not- Ignore my email.
Ignored.
Okay, I'll take it out.
All right, great. So Kate and I are going. I just wanted to make sure because we have the whole board here tonight and rather than just ask individually, is there something that, you as the rest of the board wants us to advocate or to,
Mm.
describe to the chairs of the.
Oh, I was planning on attending as one of the, because I consider the housing trust to be sort of a land use thing. So I guess I was thinking I was attending more with that hat on rather than my select board hat on, but I'd be happy to wear both hats. And yeah, so that's a good question. I'll listen to the answer as well.
That's why I asked.
Well, I guess just, and that's a really good question to have asked, I
Yeah.
think, because we haven't really. Anyway, just my quick thought on that would be, that I think we really want to encourage more cross communication
Right.
and when there's an opportunity, as we are hearing about one now, that rather than different land use boards operating independently, that there be more of an effort to work collaboratively and think about ways that you know, for instance, if we have the opportunity as a town to buy a parcel, rather than competition, you think about a way to do multiple uses that could
Right.
meet needs for
Right.
different
Yeah, that's a good
boards
point.
or committees.
I mean, I would steer them all back to our long discussion on aligning our goals with the master plan,
Mhm.
which generally are somewhat cross-functional, right? So, you know, you can share that. I mean, they also should be kind of working towards those same set of goals, not only because it's us, but also master plan. And I think it speaks to what Barney said, they should be working cooperatively to that. And we did, you know, not for nothing, they were the first one I think we started with back in the day when we went to goal setting and we wanted them to
Yeah.
get together.
Yeah. And they were on board at that point,
They were, and I think they still.
and I think they still are. So, yeah.
Yeah. Good. And are
Nathan,
all
did
of-
you have anything?
No, I don't.
Okay.
And are all of the land use boards and committees sending somebody?
For the most part, yes.
Yeah.
We'll take attendance though.
Fire chief, you got enough room in there?
We'll just ask for forgiveness.
Yeah. All
Who's
right.
bringing the donut.
I do have I do have a different topic though, and it goes back to the
Nathan,
agenda.
I don't know if you can speak up a little bit, or maybe
Yeah,
we just.
sorry, I changed what I was
Ears.
speaking through. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I do have a question related to agenda items. When will we be discussing the dog issue?
Yeah.
Oh,
We're not
right.
sure yet, right?
I mean, I think we need to act quickly.
Yep.
So whether it's the executive session or something, I think we need to get together quickly to discuss it. It's a board
Um,
issue.
Yeah, so we
Met with council.
we had a Zoom conversation with council. Was that last week?
Yeah, last Wednesday.
Yeah, last Wednesday. And what we determined was that we want to reach out to the dog owners and invite them to come to a select board meeting for a discussion about how we might work together to ensure that the dog is, appropriately restrained, and that is there anything that they or we can help suggest as a further remedy to make it a safer situation.
Have we not already had that discussion with them?
Well, the discussion with the council, it made it clear that we had that when we had the dog hearing last year with them, we issued an order of a set of orders, and those are being followed. And so it's not that they've violated the terms of the orders, but more that there may be some additional remedies that we could jointly agree upon. And that is our sort of, that's a good approach that's being recommended by council.
Okay. I guess I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
That dog was loose in his yard.
Correct.
Which is part of our prescriptive order.
It was, he could just be loose unattended in the yard?
Well,
Or
I'll
I-
remind you that we had this discussion. I don't know how much you want to get into it tonight, but we
And
did have.
I don't want to get into it. I just
No.
want to know, when are we going to
Yeah.
talk
So
about
let's
it?
take
Okay.
it.
Hold on,
So-
Nathan, hard to hear you. Say that again.
He doesn't want to.
You want to have it on an
I-
agenda.
I don't want to have the discussion now because it's not on the agenda. I just wanted to
Right.
know when we were going to have it, because I think it's a
Okay.
pressing issue that we need to address.
Yes.
I
yeah.
wasn't trying to force having the discussion.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks, Nathan. So let's make sure we address this at our next select board
Absolutely.
meeting. And we'll put that on for the 15th.
Yeah, and then there was a recommendation in the new governance committee that things like this, that we designate we have a designated police officer who hears these things and not us. Because then it's done in a different kind of a venue. But anyway, we can talk about
That's
that
for-
later.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else before we adjourn? All right. I'd like a motion to adjourn, please.
I move we adjourn.
Second,
All right. All in favor, roll call vote. Arnold, I.
Brown eye.
Modell, I.
Reed, I.
Snell, I.
Excellent.
night,
Thank you
everyone.
all.
I think I just
And the meeting is
adjourned
adjourned.
my Zoom, so that's good.